Chapter 26, Transition. On the stairs leading from the 7th floor to the 8th floor, Professor McGonagall and his party met the Principal Dumbledore, who had just walked up from the dungeon in a dress. "Milva, what are you going to do with these students? Are you looking for the monster that came out?" "Albus, the monster is dead. It was the students behind me who did it. I think they need to explain it to you." "Oh, thank you. Let me handle the following." After Professor McGonagall left, Professor Dumbledore led 4 students to open the door of an empty room on the 7th floor and waved his wand. A table and 5 chairs appeared in the room, and 5 cups of steaming black tea were placed on the table. "Okay, let's sit down," Professor Dumbledore said to be in the position to get started, and then looked at the 4 students. "Drink some tea and relax. Being chased by a monster is not a pleasant thing." After seeing that all 4 were calm, Dumbledore began to ask how things happened. Hermione stood up and said that she was in a bad mood because she was under too much pressure to study. She found a place to cry, and later Ryan comforted her and accompanied her to study for an afternoon. So they didn't catch the Halloween dinner, and they didn't know that the monster ran out. When they were about to go upstairs, they met Harry and Ron to inform them, but unfortunately they encountered a monster on the way to the auditorium. Hermione then described how the 4 of them fought against the monster, and finally killed the monster under the wrong conditions. After the 3 boys also made some additions. After the 4 people finished the experience, Dumbledore praised the wisdom, courage and friendship of the 4 of them, and added 5 points to each of them. "I think you are still hungry," Dumbledore said after adding the points. "If you are not injured, it is best to go back to the Gryffindor Tower. The students all enjoy Halloween dinners in their own colleges." "What?" 4 people bowed to say goodbye to the principal and left the room. Dumbledore picked up the black tea and took a sip, showing a gratifying smile. After climbed a floor, Lane and the 4 of them came to the front of the portrait of Fat Lady Pignose. After they had spoken the password, they got into it. The public lounge is full of people, noisy. Everyone was eating the food that was delivered. After Harry and Ron had finished their food, they saw Ryan and Hermione sitting at a table waiting for them. For a time, 4 people were very embarrassed. They didn't look at anyone, they only said thank you at the same time, and hurried to their plate. But Ryan and Hermione can see that each other's emotions are very good. Harry and Ron can find them regardless of their own safety when they know there is a monster. In addition to courage, it can show friendship. Especially for Hermione, this made her make 2 more friends, and she felt that she was not that isolated. Seriously, Ryan originally intended to just mix some offset points, and did not intend to be so deeply connected with the protagonist. But people are not plants, and they can be ruthless. Killing a 12-foot-tall monster together is a matter of taking life as a bet. This deadly relationship is also very precious to Ryan, so he has Harry Potter and Ron Weiss in his heart. I became his friend. After entering November, the weather became very cold. The mountains around the school were grey and covered with ice and snow, and the lake was cold and hard like hardened steel. Every morning, there is frost on the ground. The Hagrid can be seen from the window upstairs. He was wrapped in a long moleskin coat, wearing rabbit fur gloves and huge fur boots, and defrosting the flying broom on the Quidditch stadium. The season of Quidditch began. After a few weeks of training, Harry will participate in his first game on Saturday, Gryffindor vs. Slytherin. If the Gryffindor team wins, they will rise to 2nd place in the Academy Cup. By the way, the rankings of the colleges are as follows. The 1st place is Ravenclaw. The school bullies are really unstoppable when studying. The 2nd place is Slytherin. You need to consider if you are from a wizarding family. The little wizards have a much better foundation. The 3rd place is Hufflepuff. The little badgers are honest people, but they don't cause trouble, and the advantages of many people make them, although everyone has few bonus points, but the total score is up. Finally, it is Gryffindor. No way, the most skinny students are here, more bonus points, more deductions. If calculated according to the average deduction points per person, Gryffindor ranked first. But the good news is that the division between the 4 colleges is very tight, so this competition is very important. Also for this reason, from the Dean Professor McGonagall to every classmate in the college, this competition is very important. This also allowed Ryan to experience a completely different style of British school from his previous life. Pay attention to sports. Gryffindor used Harry as a seeker to participate in as a secret weapon, and Harry rarely appeared in daily training. But as Ryan said to Ron in the stands last time, the team project training in this open-air environment is kept secret, and people who are interested can still see it. As a result, reading www.uukanzu.com, some people told Harry that he would play well, and some people told Harry that they would hold the mattress by then. Run with him below to prevent him from falling down. Ryan feels that these 2 statements are equally bad, and hopes that Harry won't be crushed by this pressure. Now that Hermione has learned to get along with others, she no longer accuses others of mistakes as before, and her attitude towards school rules is no longer so old-fashioned. You are right. I think everyone should be responsible for themselves. As long as it doesn't hurt others, I don't need to interfere with others' lives, Hermione told Ryan during a self-study. Hermione and Ryan are still happy to answer questions for classmates, but they will not show their homework to others. This makes Harry very contradictory. If you want to do your homework, It will take a lot of time to participate in the discussion after class. But he didn't have much time to train Quidditch. No way, sometimes he can only learn from Ron's work. Ron told Harry when he learned from his homework that when Ryan and Hermione organized everyone to discuss homework together, they really improved everyone's level, and they could answer most of the questions raised by classmates. If he can't answer, he will also ask his brother Percy to help. But Ron also pointed out that sometimes his work would be seen by Percy, and then inevitably be reprimanded. But for the temptation to complete the homework quickly and well, being scolded by my brother is really a small thing that cannot be smaller. Then Ron took out a notebook and handed it to Harry, saying that Ryan asked him to bring it over. This book is full of class notes and brief introductions related to homework, and there is a pile of small papers that students cheer for Harry. Looked at these notes, Harry's heart filled with warmth. This game must win. He made up his mind. Chapter 27, Quidditch Match. Regarding the Quidditch game, Ryan is completely unfamiliar. Obviously, what you get from watching the movie is not the same as the real world. So when the classmates around him are discussing Quidditch, Ryan will have an inexplicable sense of embarrassment standing next to him. But it was also the Quidditch blind Hermione who found the solution. She borrowed a book called Quidditch Traceability from the school library. This book is not boring to read. It introduces almost all that knowledge related to Quidditch. For example, there are 700 fouls in the Quidditch game, and they all appeared in a World Cup game in 1473. What happened in that game? Finders are usually the smallest and fastest players. The most serious Quidditch accidents seem to happen to them. Yes, it turns out that Harry basically gets injured every year because of playing. Ryan vomited. Although Quidditch seldom died during the game, it is said that the referee often disappeared without a trace, and appeared in the Sahara Desert only a few months later. This is the Black Whistle was retaliated against. Fortunately, with this book, Ryan can finally exchange topics in this regard as a Cloud fan and classmates. Quidditch is an important thing in school, but for non-athletes like Lane, other things are also very important. During this period of time, he ran to the greenhouse almost every day during his free time to exercise his ability to cultivate and control magic plants. This makes Professor Sprout very happy, because most of the students do not like to deal with dirt. Professor Sprout also told Ryan that if he can maintain this attitude, there is absolutely no problem in getting into his NEWT class. In addition to this, Lane also practiced spells and potions with Hermione. In order to practice the spell, they made some gadgets. For example, Hermione used magic to create a bright blue flame that can be carried around. Ryan turned an empty jam jar into a brass hand warmer and carried the flame around for heating. The wet and cold winter in the Scottish Highlands was really uncomfortable, especially when it was necessary to leave the room. The day before Harry's game, Ryan and Hermione decided to cheer on Harry. They met Harry and Ron in the yard. So the four people formed a circle back to back, chatting while using the brass hand warmer to warm up. At this time, Snape passed through the courtyard. Harry noticed at a glance that Snape was limping. He was a little allergic to Snape, so he lowered his head and wanted to pretend he was not here. Unfortunately, Harry's guilty actions attracted Snape's attention. He limped over and seemed to be looking for a reason to train him. "What's in your hand, Potter?" "Is Quidditch traceability." Harry showed him. "Library books are not allowed out of school," Snape said. "Give it to me." Gryffindor was deducted 5 points. He made a provisional provision. Harry looked at Snape who limped away and murmured uneasily, "I don't know what happened to his leg." "I don't know, but I hope he has enough pain," Ron said gloatingly. "But tomorrow is the game. Harry needs this book to relax." After finishing her homework, Hermione gave Harry the book Quidditch Traced. Harry read the book for a while and felt a little uneasy. "When I thought of holding a feather duster in the library, and angered Mrs. Pince who didn't care about the classmates, courage suddenly rushed into my heart. Why should he be afraid of Snape?" So he stood up and said to others that he was going to ask Snape if he could return the book to him. "You are brave, Harry. Good luck," Lane said and patted his shoulder. After Harry crawled out of the tunnel, Ron looked at Harry's back and said, "I won't go after I changed." Ryan and Hermione nodded together in agreement. After 10 minutes, Ryan and they are discussing a question about how to reduce the points deduction in the potion class next time. Harry crawled in from the entrance a bit awkwardly. Lane looked at the gasping Harry and asked, "What happened?" Harry lowered his voice and said, "I just saw Snape's leg and bloody, and Filch gave him medicine." He also said, "How could you stare at 3 heads at the same time?" Then Harry paused and waited for them to digest the information and said, "Do you know what this means?" On Halloween, he wanted to pass by the big 3-headed dog. When we saw him, he was looking for the thing guarded by the big dog. I dare to bet with my flying broom that he let the monster come in to distract people. "No, he won't," Hermione said quickly. "I know he's not very good, but he will never steal Dumbledore's strict collection." "To be honest, Hermione, you always think that all the teachers are saints, but I think Snape does this kind of thing," Ron said unkindly. Ryan interjected, "But there is a doubt that Snape is the dean of Slytherin. He should know what is in the school. Besides, as a professor at Hogwarts, he is also a potion master. I don't think he will be missing anything. Besides, We saw that the dog would attack all the people who entered in the last time, so the wound can only prove that Snape might have been in that house. It cannot be explained that he wants to steal something." "Well, you might be right," Harry said. "I went to bed and I will play tomorrow." After that, Harry walked upstairs staggeringly. Hermione stared at Ryan. "Do you really think Professor Snape is not a thief?" "I don't know." Ryan spread his hands and shook his head. "But now there is no definitive evidence, and these few discoveries alone certainly cannot confirm that Professor Snape has done bad things." Sat for a while, and the unintentional readers went to bed after saying goodnight to each other. Early the next morning, the weather was clear and cold. The charming smell of grilled sausages filled the restaurant, and everyone was looking forward to a wonderful Quidditch game, chatting happily. Ryan also became happy because of this atmosphere, and was as excited as going to the sports meet in the previous Life Elementary School. Walked to the auditorium, and Ryan found that the others had arrived. Hermione was persuading Harry, the only unhappy person on the long table. Harry seemed tense as a whole because of the tension. "You must have a few bites for breakfast." "I don't want to eat anything." "Eat a little toast," Hermione persuaded. "I'm not hungry." Ryan walked over. "Exercise is very exhausting. You can't fly hungry." At this time, Simone also came out to help. "Harry, you need to maintain strong physical strength, and the golfer is always the person who the other party focuses on." "Thank you," Harry said as he watched Seymour smearing thick ketchup on his sausages. The British felt that ketchup was what they ate. As soon as 11 o'clock, everyone went to the stadium and the game was about to start. Chapter 28, Quidditch Match. When actually reading novels in his last life, Ryan felt that wizards might have a tendency to self-masochism because their annual Quidditch match starts between Halloween and Christmas, which is between November and December. Think of a group of spectators standing on the high platform blowing wind in the cold winter winds of the Scottish Highlands. The players are even harder and need to fly around in the sky without obstruction. No matter from which point of view, it is a difficult thing. But after Ryan really arrived in this world, he discovered the enthusiasm of the wizards for Quidditch. This enthusiasm also made all the above problems not a problem. When he rushed to the Quidditch stadium with everyone, he found that almost all the teachers and students came to the stands around the Quidditch stadium. Many students also brought binoculars. The seat was almost halfway up, but sometimes it was still difficult to see the game. Ryan and a large group of first-year freshmen came to the top row together. In order to encourage their classmate Harry, everyone made a banner with a magic effect, which said that Potter will win, and a dynamic picture of a lion chasing a snake was drawn beside it. Mrs. Hyochi served as the referee. She stood in the middle of the court, holding her flying broom in her hand, waiting for players on both sides. When the players from both parties came out of the locker room and walked onto the field, Mrs. Hyochi came to the players. "Listen, I hope everyone will participate in the game fairly and honestly." At this time, Simone said to everyone, "Mrs. Hyochi is warning the Slytherin team that their playing style is dirty, especially to their captain Marcus Flint. Under his leadership, Slater sometimes Lynn will take the initiative to take some means. It seems that no matter where it is, there will be some people who do not abide by the spirit of sports." Ryan issued his comment. Hermione, Simone, and several other students who grew up in a muggle world all nodded their heads in agreement. "Please ride a flying broom." Everyone gets on their broom. Madame Hyochi blew her silver whistle. 15 raised the flying broom and lifted high into the sky. The game started. The ghost ball was immediately grabbed by Angelina Gryffindor. "Johnson, what a great chaser the girl is, and she looks very charming." "Jordan, sorry, Professor." Ryan felt that in addition to the wonderful performances of the players in the Quidditch game at Hogwarts, the most interesting thing is the explanation of Lee Jordan. Not only can the situation on the field be described quickly and accurately, but the various gags mixed in the commentary also make the whole commentary lively. Of course, because his explanations are prone, sometimes even too emotional, so Lee Jordan has been explaining under the close supervision of Professor McGonagall. She really ran all the way up, a beautiful pass, to Alias Spinett. She was the talent discovered by Oliver Wood Goggles, and was only a substitute last year. The ball was passed to Johnson again. Then, oops, Slytherin snatched the ghost fly ball. Slytherin captain Marcus Flint got a ghost fly ball and ran away. Flint looked like an eagle on top flying. He is going to score. No, Gryffindor goalkeeper Wood made a beautiful move and broke the ball. Now it is the Gryffindor team who takes the ball. It is the Gryffindor team chasing goal for Katie Bell, rushing around Flint swiftly around the court. Ouch, that must be very painful. Was hit in the back by a stray ball. Ghost flying ball was lettering steals, that it was Dorian Pusey rushing towards the goal post, but he was knocked down by another stray ball. The stray ball was set aside by Fred or George Weasley. The two twins are really difficult to distinguish. Kent and OS batsmen are so beautiful. Hansen recaptured the ghost flying ball, with no resistance in front, and she desperately ran, as if flying, dodge a stray ball. The goalpost was in front. Come, well, Angelina goalkeeper Blatch dived over. Miss Gryffindor scored. The cheers of the Gryffindors echoed in the cold sky, which was also mixed with the roars and curses of the Slytherins. Harry circled back and forth in the air, and it seemed that no golden snitch had been found. The Slytherin team got the ball, Lee Jordan said. Pace, the chaser, bowed his head and dodged 2 roaming balls. He escaped the twin brothers of Weasley and Bell, the chaser. Is that a thief? Drian Pusey just turned his head to look at a golden light flying from his left ear, leaking the ghost flying ball, and a whisper of murmur came from the crowd. It seemed that Harry had also seen the thief, quickly dived down, chasing the golden streamer. Slytherin's finder Terence Hickeys also saw it. The two ran towards the thieves side by side. The chaser seemed to have forgotten what they should do, hovering in the air one by one, watching. Harry's speed is faster than Higgins. He seems to be catching a thief soon! Exclamation mark. An angry roar came from the Gryffindors below. Marcus Flint slammed into Harry deliberately, and Harry's flying broom swayed out of direction, but Harry grabbed it dead. Foul! Gryffindors shouted. You reading www.uukanzoo.com. Lean also roared in the cold wind. He seemed to slowly understand the charm of the sport. The game continued, and the situation for the Gryffindor team was excellent, with the ball control always in their hands. Suddenly, Harry began to do brown exercise in the air. Ryan, who had been watching Harry for the first time, discovered the situation. Ryan aimed at Harry with a telescope, and found that his expression became very nervous, and it seemed that the broom was out of control now. Hermione saw Ryan holding his telescope seriously, and looked at the place he was staring at. At this time, Harry also slowly drifted away from the arena, and some students had discovered something was wrong. What's the matter? Didn't it just crash? Did the broom break? Hermione said nervously. It should not be. That light wheel 2000 is unlikely to be damaged by several collisions. The most likely thing is that someone used black magic to interfere with the broom, and in view of the anti-jamming ability of light wheel 2000, the interferer should have good attainment in black magic. This can't be done, Lane replied. Look, Snape. Hermione patted Ryan's arm. You see him staring at Harry chanting. And Ryan raised his binoculars and said, you look behind him. Chilo is staring at the sky and chanting. What? Hermione looked carefully in the direction of Chilo. What should I do now? Come with me. Lane led Hermione to the staff bench slowly. After more than a minute, they came to the back of the faculty seat, and according to the method negotiated on the road, when Ryan gave a thumbs up, the two ignited the robes of Snape and Chilo at the same time. After more than 10 seconds, there was chaos on the teaching desk, and the two men also took the opportunity to return to their seats. Chapter 29. Post-match analysis. When Ryan and Hermione hurried back to their seats, they found that the game was over. According to Ron's account, Harry's broom returned to normal a few minutes after they disappeared. He swooped down on the golden snitch and ended the game. Gryffindor won by 170 to 60. At this time, Ryan also received a system prompt. Change the course of the game, making Hermione suspicious of Chilo. Get 2 offset points. Well, this is really a good harvest. Lane happily greeted some friends and went back together. While Ryan, Hermione, and Ron were going back to the castle, they just met Harry, who was going to Hagrid for tea. So the 4 people walked together to Hagrid's cabin. A few minutes later, the 4 of them sat by the warm fireplace, each holding a cup of fragrant black tea. It was Snape, Ron explained to everyone. I saw it. He was cursing Harry's flying broom. He muttered in his mouth. His eyes kept staring at Harry. No, it's not just Snape that is suspicious, Hermione added. Ryan and I saw Chilo sitting behind Snape also chanting. Ryan also said at this time, there must be one of them cursing, and the other is protecting. Otherwise, Harry cannot stay in the sky for so long. Nonsense, Hagrid said. Why do professors do such a thing? The eyes of the 4 people communicated with each other, and Harry motioned for Ryan to explain. Because both of their professors are connected to the thing. Before Halloween, Ryan said word by word as he thought about the wording. The monster is Professor Chilo, and how the monster managed to come out is also Professor Chilo's words. There is no witness to prove his words. At this time, Harry couldn't help saying, I found something about Snape. On Halloween, he wanted to pass the big 3-headed dog. It bit him. We thought he wanted to steal the big dog. Things to guard. Hagrid put down the teapot heavily. How do you know the 3-headed Luai? He asked. Luai with 3 heads? Yeah, it's mine. I bought it from a Greek guy I met at the hotel last year. I lent it to Dumbledore to guard. What? Harry asked eagerly. Okay, don't ask anymore, Hagrid said rudely. That's the #1 secret, okay? But someone wants to steal it. Nonsense, Hagrid added. Snape and Chilo are both teachers of Hogwarts, and they will never do such a thing. So why does anyone want to kill Harry? Ron asked loudly. That may just be a coincidence. You read it wrong, Hagrid said a little irritably. I don't know why Harry's flying broom behaves like that, but the teachers personally selected by Professor Dumbledore will never want to kill a student. Now, all 3 of you listen to me. You are intervening. You have nothing to do with it. This is very dangerous. Forget the big dog. Forget what it is guarding. This is between Professor Dumbledore and Nicole May. Aha, Harry said. So this involves a man named Nicole, right? Hagrid was furious. He was angry with himself. Soon, 4 people were driven out of the cabin by Hagrid. Then they returned to the common room. After Harry had dealt with a large number of people who came to congratulate him, he saw Ryan discussing what was happening in the corner of his personal life. Harry leaned in. Ron said to Harry after seeing him, I think Snape should be behind the scenes. and both of them think that Cho and Snape are suspect. After listening to Ron's story, Harry said to Ryan and Hermione, "I feel more like Snape, because I can feel that he hates me." Ryan silently said in the bottom of his heart, "Who made you look exactly like your dad who loved the sword?" Then stopped Hermione, who wanted to argue with Ron, cleared her throat and said, "Whoever wants to steal is no longer the most important issue. Today, from Hagrid, we got a lot of news. We already know the news now, that three-headed dog named Louis, Hagrid, lent Dumbledore as a guard to guard something. And such a thing is related to a person called Nicole May." Also, Ryan added, "The monster that hunted us down before was holding a weapon that fits it well, according to what I saw in the book. Whereas the magical animal, some smart monsters can be trained as caretaker. This means that the monster was originally used to guard some place that day. After all, if it is used as a teaching aid in the black magic defense class, it will not be equipped with weapons. That is to say, it is likely that under the trapdoor at the foot of Louis, there is a very large space, and more than one level is set." Hermione reacted and continued. "Okay." Harry interrupted Hermione and Lane's conjecture about the defense level. "What we need to know now is, who is this Nicole May?" "I don't know. I haven't heard of it." Wait, as if I was a little impressed, my father seemed to tell me. The remaining three people turned their eyes to Ryan, and Ron first questioned, "How is it possible? There are no wizards in your family?" "Some wizards are not necessarily known only by the wizarding world. For example, like Merlin, he is also very famous in the Mole world. My father is writer and will check a lot of information if this Nicole May is well known and has lived in the Mole world for a long time, so much so that the Mole world knows the existence of this person. Then my father probably saw this name when checking the information." Ryan made a request to Ron explanation. "According to you, Nicole May cannot be a person in the past 200 years. After all, the secrecy laws have been strictly enforced in the past 200 years, but who can live 200 years? But there are also, it may be that people in the Mole world have the same name and surname," Ron said after thinking about it. "Then can you write a letter and ask your father?" Harry said, "I think I'll wait until Christmas and I'll go back and ask. After all, it's likely that a professor is going to steal things. He might intercept our communications." Hermione saw that everyone was a little dull and said, "Well, let's check this person out of class." Remember that Hagrid said at the time that this was between Professor Dumbledore and Nicole May, although the words were not that it, but we can determine from this sentence that Professor Dumbledore knew Nicole May. "Then we will start with Professor Dumbledore's peers." "Well, this is a good idea," Harry said. "Anyway, there will be no game for me until Christmas. We can take advantage of this opportunity to go to the library to read the book." After Christmas, Ryan went to his house and asked his father, "Let's make the next step." After everyone finished speaking, Ryan stood up and said to Harry, "Okay, today is our Quidditch team's first victory, and Harry, your first victory." Then Ryan pointed to the lounge, the noisy crowd. "So there is something to do tomorrow, and it's time for celebration." Chapter 30, Christmas. Christmas is coming. One morning in mid-December, Hogwarts School woke up from a dream and found that it was covered with several feet of snow and the lake was covered with hard ice. Weasley's twin brothers were punished because they enchanted several snowballs, let them chase Chilo everywhere, and fell behind his headscarf. Ryan saw this scene and admired from the bottom of his heart the heroic act of striking the face of Lord Devil for the Weasley twins. In this kind of approaching holiday, some classes are a bit unbearable. For example, Professor Snape's potion class. Since the classroom is underground and does not have any heating measures, one mouth can breathe out. Not to mention that when his hands and feet were numb, he had to endure poisonous tongue of Professor Snape, which was colder than the classroom temperature. "I really feel sorry for those people," Draco Malfoy provoked during a potion class. "They had to stay at Hogwarts for Christmas because the family didn't want them." But Harry seemed unimpressed and could even be said to be a bit happy. He felt it was so exciting not to return to the Dursleys for Christmas. Malfoy's words did not destroy his good mood at all. When Professor McGonagall enrolled the students in the school last week, several brothers of Harry and Weasley chose to stay. Harry stayed to get rid of the Dursley family, and the Weasley brothers were because their parents were going to visit Charlie in Romania. Hermione and Lane chose to go home for Christmas. After all, this was the first time they left home for so long. Of course, they also told Harry and Ron, who were staying in school, that they would prepare gifts for them and look forward to their gifts. Although 2 weeks before, they searched a pile of books and did not find out who Nicole May was. But this did not affect their expectations of Christmas at all. 10 days before Christmas, it's time for the holidays. After breakfast, Ryan picked up his school bag and went to Hogsmeade Station with his classmates. Walked out of the wrought iron gates decorated with winged boars on both sides of the school. After walking for more than 10 minutes, they came to the platform of Hogsmeade Station, where the Hogwarts Express was already waiting. There were not many people in the car, so Ryan and Hermione found an empty box. After a while, Longbottom also sat in. Ryan wanted to relax, but Hermione took out her homework and began to write. This made Ryan and Neville, who played the wizarding chess not to finish the game, consciously put away the chess pieces and took out their homework to start writing. After a day of driving, The train reached King's Cross Station. In the square inches front of the station, they met Neville's grandmother. Old Lady Longbottom was very grateful to Ryan and Hermione for helping Neville in school, which made them feel a little embarrassed. After saying goodbye to Longbottom grandson, Ryan and Hermione also took taxis home. Before saying goodbye, Hermione repeatedly told Ryan to consult his father about Nicole May's provenance. If found, you can call to inform her. Went home, Ryan pushed open the door and found that his parents had already prepared dinner for him, which made Ryan feel the warmth of his long-lost family. After dinner and before going to bed, it was Ryan and his parents talking about life in school and what happened recently at home. The good news is that my father Mr. Lambert's new novels have sold well recently, so it may be busy a few days before Christmas, and there are some autograph book sales. After reading for a while after dinner, Lane chose to go to bed early in the morning. After all, taking a train for a day is also very tiring. After, it was a happy Christmas holiday, except writing homework every day and then spending 7 or 8 minutes calling Hermione to exchange the homework of the day. Ryan was very happy to spend the rest of his life, when his parents had something to do and were not at home. Ryan began to practice his hands with various mechanical structures at home one by one to improve his proficiency in the Winter House Industry Manual. Of course, for Ryan, the luckiest thing is to practice magic in the world of groceries, and he will not be discovered by the Ministry of Magic through Hills, so he has a lot of practice time. As Christmas approaches, Lane goes to the community library to meet Hermione, because during the call the previous day, Ryan told Hermione that he had found news about Nicole May. After all, it is not difficult to find a reasonable proof process if you already know the answer. Under the premise of knowing that Nicole May is a French alchemist in the Middle Ages, it is not so difficult to find him in a lot of materials. Ryan didn't wait a few minutes in the library, and saw Hermione walk in a blue down jacket. Then she sat across from Ryan and asked, "You said you have found the answer. How did you do it?" Ryan said, "I asked my father when I went home." You read www.uukanzu.com. He told me that he found the name when he wrote a fantasy novel about the Middle Ages, but I couldn't remember the specific situation at the moment. So I read the information collected by my father when he wrote the novel and found these. After that, Ryan took the school bag from his back and took out a pile of materials from it. Turn over a page, point to the words above, and read word by word. Nicholas Flamel, French, a famous alchemist in the 14th century. His most famous contribution is the creation of the alchemist's magical stone, the Philosopher's Stone, which he used to successfully turn mercury into gold. At the same time, according to legend, he obtained longevity until 1929. He was continuously witnessed by him. In addition, although public information proved that he died in his home in 1427, there were greedy people who robbed him and his wife's graveyard at that time. It was found to be empty. This also proved from another aspect that he obtained longevity. There is also this. Ryan finished and pulled out a map. Hermione stepped forward and found that it was a map of Paris. "What is this map?" Hermione asked. "Look at this." Lane pointed out a circled place on the map. "Number 51 Montmorency Street, Nicole May House. This place used to be the house of Nicole May. So this shows that Nicole May was an alchemist living in Paris in the Middle Ages. I thought the magic stone should be hidden inside," Hermione exclaimed in a low voice. "Because when we searched the library that day, Harry told me that he suspected that the day he went to Diagon Alley, a small bag that Hagrid had taken from the deepest vault of Cooling Pavilion was hidden under the trapdoor thing. So according to the size and other existing data, it is very likely that the hidden thing is a magic stone." Chapter 31. Discussions about magic stones and new guests. "So it's reasonable that someone wants to steal the magic stone," Hermione said. "Who wouldn't like a thing that can make people live forever and can produce gold indefinitely? However, since there is such a good thing, why not make a few more?" Hermione asked with some doubt. "I don't think they don't want to do it, but they can't do it," Lane replied. "Why? Since you can do the first one, how difficult is it to be the second one after mastering the method?" "When I was at the Hogwarts library, I turned over several books on practicing alchemy. Although I don't understand much, I remember one thing clearly. The core of alchemy is the principle of equivalent exchange." Lane and Hermione nodded and said, "Then think about it. If you look at it from the perspective of equivalent exchange, what kind of things can increase life contrary to the laws of nature while changing the nature of matter to make gold?" Hermione thought for a while, and suddenly covered her mouth with her hands like a fright. "You also think of it, only with the price of life can we have such a powerful effect." But Nicole May is a friend of Professor Dumbledore. He should not be a bad person." Hermione stammered. Lane knew that Hermione had misunderstood. "I didn't say Nicole May was a murderer. It was just when he made the magic stone that his residence in Paris had a massive Black Death and smallpox. Given the scientific level of that era, infectious diseases caused a lot of deaths. For example, the outbreak of the Black Death in 1353 and the mortality rate in Paris were 40 times higher than usual. In the outbreak of smallpox in 1418, At least 60,000 people died in Paris within a month and a half. The death of these lives is likely to provide enough for the production of magic stone's raw materials. But there have been few such opportunities since then. I remember this paragraph in the history class in elementary school. Hermione nodded in agreement. Then we have to write a letter to Harry now to tell them that we have found it. So he and Ron don't have to worry about this thing during the Christmas holidays. I think they might have forgotten about it. Ryan vomited. Finally, because Hermione had something wrong, Ryan went to Diagon Alley and wrote today's discovery as a credit towel to Harry. As expected by Ryan, Harry did not use the holiday to check the information. After the holiday, he and Ron were very happy to play. Not much thought about LeMay. The dorms are completely under their control, and there are fewer people in the common room than usual. They can occupy a few more comfortable armchairs by the fire. When they received the letter from Ryan, they sat there and ate all the food that could be poked with a roasting fork: bread, pasta, mushrooms, while designing a plan to expel Malfoy. Although none of these plans was possible, put it into practice, but it's always fun to talk. Hey, Harry, there is a letter outside. Ron saw an owl standing outside the window and pecked at the glass window with a letter on his foot. Harry opened the window, and a gust of wind blew his face across the snow. He took the letter, then broke a small piece of butter bread from the grill fork and fed it to the owl. After eating the bread, the owl patted its wings and flew away. Who gave it to you? Ron asked. Harry ripped the envelope and looked at it, and said to Ron, Lane's letter. He said that he and Hermione had found Nicole May, and they would tell us when they came back from the holiday. Hey, I told you long ago that Ryan and Hermione are better at reading books. It's true that they are handed over to them, Ron said to Harry lazily in his armchair. After they completely let go of it in their hearts, Ron began to teach Harry to play wizard chess. Wizard chess and mul chess are exactly the same, but its pieces are alive, so it makes people feel more like commanding the army to fight. Harry, who only uses other people's chess pieces, is really not as good as Ron, who used Grandpa's ancestral wizard chess. These chess pieces slumped Harry's chess level, making him dizzy. After sending the letter to Harry, Ryan returned to boring homework in the last few days before Christmas, then chatted with his parents during the break, decorated the home, and repaired some bad things in the storage room by the way. As more and more mechanical products have been contacted, Ryan's mastery of the Winter House Industrial Manual has also increased. On the day before Christmas Eve, Ryan even repaired the old typewriter in the corner of the storage room. This made Mr. Lambert very happy, because this was once used by his grandfather. He was later given as a gift for graduation from elementary school. Mrs. Sally shone every button and every part of the typewriter, and put it in the display cabinet of the living room as an ornament. In the afternoon, Ryan decided to go around. After all, he was working on his homework a few days ago, so he never went out. I just walked into the park and hadn't looked around. Suddenly, Wanji grocery store told him that a new customer had come to the door. Lane quickly found a public toilet, saw no one, got into a compartment and locked the door, and then went to the Wanji grocery store. Arrived in the shop, only to realize that there was already a guest waiting there. This man is a middle-aged man who is a little fat, and looks a little flinching. She wore a cotton-padded jacket and shaved yin and yang heads on her head. There was a little braid behind her. When he saw Ryan suddenly appeared in the shop, he knelt down and hurriedly shouted that the fairy was saving his life. Lane quickly let him bypass the counter and pull him up. After all, a person of further age kneeled in front of him and kowtowed. It was really difficult to accept. Okay, there must be something you need to help you when you come here. If you have any questions, please hurry up and say it. Otherwise, how do I know how to help you? After listening to this person would kneel down again. But he still stood still in Ryan's angry eyes. My name is Delford, because my master is framed by an adulterer. So my master and I were exiled to Heilongjiang. Now my mother and my wife have just given birth to a baby, and everyone in the dwelling room is too cold. I'm sick. I really can't walk around in the yard anxiously at night. And then I heard a voice call from Mingming, and I'm here. Daxian, you must save us. Lane felt familiar with this. After careful recollection, the memory of his last life as a part of a post-90s middle-aged and old people woke up. Is your master a happy doctor? Telford opened his mouth in surprise. The fairy also knows my master? Ryan waved mysteriously. When they drank with the impermanent people, they complained that your master had run them empty for many times. Then my master is all right? Defu asked. It's okay, your master has accumulated many merits. What they can do is complain. You said I need to think about how to help you. After speaking, Ryan sat behind the counter. One hand propped his chin and began to think. Telford did not dare to stand cautiously. After a few minutes, Ryan clapped his hands. I know what to do. Chapter 32, New Skills and Christmas. Deford was taken aback by Ryan's surprise. Don't wait for Defu to react. He saw Ryan took a large bottle of sunlight crystals from behind. This is the fine crystal of the sun. Soak one into the water. Your nest will be as warm and half an hour as the sun under the summer. There are 300 in this bottle, enough for you to survive the whole winter. Then Ryan touched the chestnut gold ingot again. This is 1 pound of gold. It's spring, you can reopen your hospital. However, Ryan said, I have a rule here that is equivalent. Exchange. What do you exchange for these? Defoe said, as long as the fairy you are willing to help me, I will give you more than £100. Lane shook his head in tears. I don't want a big living person here. Then I have nothing else. Defoe squatted in frustration. Your master is a magician, the medical technique should be good. Would you like to exchange the medical technique you learned for exchange? Ryan asked. Of course I did. But how can I give you? Defoe's face was puzzled. Will you like it? After Ryan waved his hand, a white mist floated out of Telford's temple and flew to the shelf to become a blue leather-threaded book. Okay, let's clear it. After finishing, Ryan gave Sun Crystal and the gold ingot to Telford, and then Telford went out with a look of embarrassment. Returned to the yard, Defoe thought he had a dream, but when he looked down, he saw the bottle and gold in his hand full of sunshine crystals. Immediately ran into the shack excitedly. Master, I met the fairy, we can get through this winter. Ryan heard the system prompt in the grocery store, slightly change the fate of the son of the plane, gaining 1 point of deviation. Well, no matter how small the mosquito is, it is meat. After comforting herself, Ryan looked at the new book. On the blue cover is Handbook of Primary Chinese Medicine, Telford edition. According to the system prompt, learning this requires 2 offset points. Although Telford's medical skills can only be regarded as ordinary, it is now at the level of the attending doctor. In addition, Ryan considers that in the future it is likely to go to some worlds in the context of ancient China, and it is necessary to master the knowledge of acupoint meridians, otherwise you may not understand the cheats. So Ryan finally chose to learn this manual of Chinese medicine. After consuming 2 offset points, countless information began to flow into his mind. After 15 minutes, the installation of knowledge was over. Ryan felt that he had mastered a lot of knowledge of traditional Chinese medicine, but to become a real traditional Chinese medicine, he still needed practice. Ryan feels that it is difficult to practice in reality. After all, an 11-year-old child, no one believes that he will see a doctor. Paid a bunch of things to change a skill that may not be used temporarily. After secretly sighing that he was a little lost, Ryan returned to the real world. Christmas Eve is coming soon. This day is an important shopping time for the British, and there is a lot of discount space in each store. Ryan's adoptive parents naturally went to Regent Street to buy things as they did in previous years, and Ryan went to Diagon Alley to prepare some gifts for friends. Diagon Alley is also a festive atmosphere. Each store is decorated with Christmas baubles, and various Christmas celebration songs are heard from the street. After buying all the presents and mailing them to friends at the Owl Post Office, Ryan plunged into a second-hand store in Taobao in a pile of old books. Spent more than an hour, Ryan bought 2 books. One is The Making of 100 Common Potions, an old book published in 1893. There are many magic potions that Ryan has never seen in textbooks, such as quick hair dyes, modified versions of aging agents and aging agents. The production method is simpler, the required medicinal materials are cheaper, but the time can only be maintained for 15 minutes. There is also a black magic defense lesson note left by top students. At least Ryan feels that with some of the notes inside, he can try to learn the coma spell by himself. On Christmas Eve, Ryan went to bed early. Because it is the most fun on Christmas Day, you will receive Christmas gifts, and there will be a big meal at noon. Waking up the next morning, Ryan found himself receiving a pile of gifts. There is a new set of clothes sent by the parents, and there is a string of sandalwood bracelets sent by the grandfather from the east. There are some gifts from students. For example, Hermione sent a new set of quill pens. Is this suggesting that the pen is not enough? A box of assorted candy sent by Harry, and a box of spice black tea with a calming effect sent by Longbottom. This should be prepared by his grandmother. What surprised him most was that Professor Sprout actually copied a copy of her students' herbal medicine notes to Ryan, and hoped that he could achieve success in herbal medicine in the future. Fortunately, Ryan sent a box of chocolates to every professor out of courtesy, otherwise it would definitely be embarrassing at this time. At noon, Ryan was eating roast goose. Mr. Lambert, who is of Chinese origin, thought the turkey meat was too thick to be delicious. So Mrs. Sally chose the more traditional roast goose, pudding and various dishes of Christmas dinner. Also wondering what Christmas looks like in Hogwarts? Unlike the small family gatherings that highlight the warmth of the Lane family, reading www.uukanzu.com. Christmas in Hogwarts is very powerful, and Harry, who has spent the best Christmas of his life in school, has a deep experience. The hall is beautifully decorated and magnificent. Walls are covered with pendant ribbons of holly and mistletoe. 12 tall Christmas trees are erected everywhere in the room. Some trees are hung with small icicles, and some trees are shining with hundreds of candles. On Christmas morning, Harry woke up for the first time and saw a small pile of parcels lying at the foot of his bed. He was a little shocked because he never thought he would receive a gift. After celebrating the festival with Ron, he started to unpack gift bags. Ron next to him exclaimed, "God, poor Dormy's card. Ryan's luck is so good. I haven't seen him eat the chocolate frog a few times." Harry also found a gift from Ryan to him, a delicate flying broom pruning shears. Yeah, Ryan always thinks more thoughtfully, and sometimes feels like the uncle. Finally, after Harry unpacked the paper bag underneath, something silvery grey like a liquid slipped down to the floor and gathered into a pile, shining brightly. Ron took a breath. Later surprised Ron told Harry that this was a very precious invisibility cloak. When Harry tried it on, he found the note inside which was written in a handwriting he had never seen before. Leave this thing to me before your father died. Should be returned to you now. Use it well. Sincerely wish you a Merry Christmas. After being greeted by the Weasley twins, Harry wore a sweater knitted by Mrs. Weasley and went to a Christmas party with at least 100 roasted turkeys and a lot of barbecue potatoes. Chapter 33, Back to Life at Hogwarts. After Christmas, Ryan devoted most of his time to that black magic defense lesson note. In the last few days before the end of the Christmas holiday, he finally mastered the coma spell, which is closely related to the constant practice in the Wanji grocery store. The only regret is that now his spell level is limited to being able to release, but the intensity may not be enough to stun a person. Ryan is now very eager to have a quick way to increase the magic power, otherwise now even if he has enough knowledge, he cannot turn knowledge into power. The last day of the holiday, Ryan said goodbye to the reluctant parents. He returned to school on the Hogwarts Express with Hermione. As soon as he arrived at the school, Ryan learned from Ron that Harry had been seeing a magic mirror that made people hallucinate for 3 nights. After Hermione complained about Harry's reckless behavior, what if Filch caught you? Ryan told Harry, actually caught by the Night Watch teacher is a small problem. The main thing is that the hallucinations can make you slowly distinguish between reality and illusion, which will eventually go crazy. Ron and Hermione together nodding his head in agreement with this view. Harry had to swear again that he would not go to the mirror again. The days after walked slowly in normal learning, but the Handbook of Primary Chinese Medicine, Defu edition that Ryan thought it might not be useful for was unexpectedly useful. In the potion class, he found that he had made a great progress in processing raw materials, controlling the heat, and making potions. Because Snape actually gave his potion an E. Lane only woke up afterwards. The Chinese medicine has a lot in common with the magic potion making process. Since Telford is so general in medicine, it is often ordered by her to grab the medicine and boil it. This kind of skill that can make perfect after long practice is also acquired by Lane in this inheritance. This has to be said to be a good thing. After all, Gryffindor students have always had a deduction in Snape's class, and Ryan has been worried that his final exam will be deducted by Professor Snape. These days have been good for Ryan, but it is worse for Harry because the Quidditch game is about to start again. Wood's requirements for the players are stricter than ever. Even after the heavy snow, the continuous rainy days did not stop raining. When Ryan reads a book in the common room after dinner every day, he often encounters the exhausted Quidditch players. Sometimes he is even wet, dropping mud from the corner of his robe. One day while Ryan and they were doing potion lesson homework together in the common room, Harry suddenly rushed in and sat beside Ron. "Wait, I will finish my homework soon. I will be able to have fun afterwards," Ron said, and then he turned to see Harry's face. "What's wrong with you?" "His face is terrible. He won't play next time." "It's the hunter for the lettering team, Snape, ha ha ha." Harry's face became more ugly, and Ron's smile froze at once. "Isn't Snape really going to be a golfer?" "Almost." Harry made a sad expression. "Snape is the referee in the next game." "Why? Huokifu talents are professionals," Ryan said. "Please leave." Hermione said immediately. "You said you were sick and could not be on the field." Ron added, "A broken leg is fine." Hermione said, "Simply break your leg. Anyway, Mrs. Pomfrey will be able to get her leg back one night." Ron followed the bad idea. "I don't think it's necessary to be so nervous," Ryan said. "The competition is under the watch of the teachers and students of the school. Even if Snape wants to kill him, he will not choose to do this occasion, otherwise he will have been in the potion class." Harry was killed. Harry also said that he would definitely go to the game, because there is no substitute for the golfer. If he does not match the Gryffindor team, he will not be able to match. As they discussed, Neville fell into the common room. Everyone can't guess how he got out of the portrait hole, because his legs were tightly stuck together. Harry saw at a glance that it was a leg-locking spell. He must have jumped upstairs like a rabbit and entered Gryffindor Castle. Everyone laughed. Only Ryan and Hermione didn't laugh. Hermione stepped forward to cast a spell on Neville, and Neville's legs parted at once. Ryan helped him stand up and found him trembling. "What's going on?" Hermione led him over, and sat with Harry while asking. "Malfoy," Neville said with a trembling voice. "I met him outside the library. He said he was looking for someone to practice the spell. But thanks to Lane, I was reminded that Slytherin had attacked Gryffindor students. Habit. When I leaned over to ridicule me, I subconsciously sprayed the chilly water spray he gave me on Malfoy's face, and then ran back while he was washing." Hermione said to Neville, "You can go and sue him." Neville shook his head. "I don't want to cause trouble anymore," he mumbled vaguely. "After all, I didn't lose this time. But Malfoy might make you a second time." Ron said, "You need the courage to tell Professor McGonagall about this." "I know I'm not brave enough." Malfoy said that. Neville choked. Finally, under the comfort of everyone, Neville finally left with a weak smile. In the days after, everyone is still training. learning to learn. It's just that one day Hermione took out an old big book and told the other 3 people that she found the account of Nicole May on the wizard's side. The 3 of them went up and saw that the page turned to read, Nicole May, the only maker of magic stones known to all. Ancient alchemy involves the making of magic stones, which is a magical substance with amazing functions. The magic stone can turn any metal into pure gold, and it can also create a medicine for immortality, so that people who drink this medicine will never die. For many centuries, there have been many reports about the magic stone. But the only piece of magic stone that remains is the famous alchemist and opera enthusiast Mr. Nicole May. He celebrated his 665th birthday last year, and now lives in Devon with his wife Bruna, 658. It's not much different from what we found, but basically confirmed our conjecture. Now it is completely certain that the magic stone is hidden in the school, Ryan said to Hermione after reading it. Harry also interjected, no wonder Snape wants to steal it. A stone can turn into gold, and you can never die. Everyone wants it. You can't just doubt Snape because of your prejudice. Maybe Chilo would like to make a potion to cure his stutter, Ryan said. But now Snape has a more realistic threat to us. Harry, think about your game this week. Harry suddenly became frustrated. Snape's refereeing game was really difficult to handle. He even felt that it might be difficult to walk down the field alive. Chapter 34, The Game and Harry's Discovery. The game was approaching. Although Harry didn't care about his companions, his mood became more and more tense, and the other players were not very calm. The thought of defeating Slytherin in the College Cup is exciting. In almost 7 years, no one has beaten them. However, with such an eccentric referee, can they succeed? On the second day, Ryan, Ron and Hermione found a place in the stands. Neville, who was sitting next to him, was a little wonder why they were holding a magic wand like an enemy. Hermione has been chattering about the magic spells they might use for a while, and people's sense of tension keeps accumulating. When the game was about to begin, Ryan decisively interrupted Hermione, who was shattering her thoughts. Look at the faculty seat. Ryan pointed to where the teachers were sitting. Principal Dumbledore also came out to watch the game, so there will be no safety issues today. Hermione and Ron also saw Professor Dumbledore's iconic silver-white beard, and then took a long sigh of relief. The game started. Just as they relaxed to watch the game, someone poked Ron in the back of his head. It's Malfoy. Oh, sorry, Weasley, I didn't see you there. Malfoy grinned at Crabbe and Goyle. I don't know how long Potter can stay on his flying broom this time. Is anyone willing to bet? How are you, Weasley? The big guy ignored Malfoy, because everyone was very concerned about Harry's condition. But Malfoy got worse, and finally Ron, who could not bear it, threw himself up and fell. Malfoy. Ryan also hit Gore with an immature coma spell. After, there was a dogfight. Fortunately, even an immature coma curse successfully let Gore temporarily lose his fighting power. Then Ryan, Ron and Neville fought against Malfoy and Crabbe together. At this time in the air, Snape had just started flying the broom, and saw a golden thing flying by his ear, only a few inches away from him, and then Harry stopped diving. He raised his arm triumphantly, and the thief was held tightly in his hand. The stage is boiling. This will be a new record. No one remembers in which game the thieves were caught so quickly. Ryan, Ron, where are you? The game is over. Harry won. We won. The Gryffindor team took the lead. Hermione screamed, jumping non-stop on the chair and holding tightly hug Petia in the front row. Lane and Ron watched each other's nose with bleeding nose and blue eyes and laughed at the same time, then joined the celebration crowd. After nearly an hour, everyone finished the celebration and was ready to go back to the castle. Then Harry came slowly from a distance. Harry, where have you been? Hermione said sharply. We won. You won. Ron patted Harry's back and shouted loudly. All 3 of Malfoy were in a coma. Ryan stunned Gore with magic from the beginning, and then we hit 2 and 3 after winning them. Everyone was only slightly injured. Now everyone is waiting for you in the common room. They are having a celebration. Fred and George have stolen some cake or something from the kitchen. Don't worry about those first, Harry said breathlessly. We're looking for an empty room. You listen to me tell you. Harry was convinced that Pippi was not in the room, and then turned back to close the door, and then told them the interaction between Snape and Chilo that he had just seen and heard on the broom. So, our judgment should be completely correct. That thing is the magic stone. Snape wanted to force Chilo to help him get the stone. He asked Chilo if he knew how to subdue Luwai and mentioned Chilo. Secret little trick, I guess. Besides Luwai, there are probably other institutions guarding the stone. There may be a lot of magic witchcraft. Maybe Chilo cast some anti-black magic spells. Snape needs to release them. Do you mean that the magic stone is safe only when Chilo can resist Snape? Hermione asked in panic. Ryan put a piece of ice on the puffed eyes and raised his head and said, no, it can't be so arbitrary. What Harry heard did not clearly refer to it at all. It sounded like Professor Snape discovered Quirrell is making trouble, so he is warning him to settle down. Forget it, Ron said. You can't think that Snape has given you a high grade for your homework recently. I think he is a good person. I think the potion that Slytherin has boiled is not as good as you, Snape. I gave them eccentrically. Harry stood up. You said that. I feel a bit confused. But I still think that Nep wants to steal the magic stone. Finally, Everyone passed the case of distrust of Snape in BB, but Ryan always had reservations. Is of course only reservations, so in Harry they firmly believe that Snape wants to steal stones, and Chilo is the guard. And when they did something they thought could help stop Snape's conspiracy, Ryan was just a silent audience. Started with a line of defense after Harry thought Quirrell. The second time he encountered Chilo on the road, he had to give him a smile with encouragement, and Ron also began to persuade people not to laugh at Chilo's stuttering. Ryan was completely speechless about this. He felt that Harry was at the end of the period. When Com really encounters Voldemort, who is indistinguishable from Chiluo, he will definitely regret it. For Ryan, in addition to the questions related to the magic stone, the most important thing is to prepare for the final exam. After all, as a student, the exam is still very important, especially for Hogwarts. This is directly related to employment issues. Hermione also started the preparation for the final exam. When Ryan and her reviewed together, she found that her book was densely marked with different colors in different contents, and even formulated a rigorous review plan. Under Hermione's chatter, Ryan kept revising his review plan. Seriously, he even thought of this study plan tighter than the time schedule before the college entrance examination last life. It's just that the 11-year-old girl can do this, and for the sake of face, Ryan can only keep up with it. But Harry and Ron didn't care about this. Once Hermione was nagging, the irritable Harry issued his rebuttal. Hermione, the exam is hundreds of years away from us. 10 weeks, Hermione retorted. It's not a few hundred years. For Nicoleem, it was just a blink of an eye. But we are not 600 years old, Ron reminded her. And, in any case, why do you want to review it? You already know everything. Why should I review? Are you crazy? Do you know that we have to pass these exams to advance to the second grade? They are very important. I should have started the review a month ago. I really don't know what happened. Lane watched them squabble and shrank himself in the chair to pretend to be little transparent. Sure enough, the true tyrants are not only good at learning by themselves, but also trying to make the scum students learn well, although they often don't appreciate it. Chapter 35, Trouble. Obviously, the teachers all want the students to be masters, or assume that the students are masters. After the game, the teaching began to enter the final sprint stage. They arranged a lot of homework. Easter holiday is far less fun than Christmas. If Hermione recites the 12 uses of dragon's blood next to her, or practice the movement of a magic wand, it will be difficult for you to rest easily. The only thing that is thankful is that Tryon attracted Hermione's main firepower. He looks tired now, because in addition to learning the content in the class, he also constantly absorbs the knowledge he had learned in the grocery store. For example, he sits in front of the fireplace in the lounge every day, and excuses the mysterious inheritance from the East, to find out the pulse of the curious students. Fortunately, Ryan was only 11 years old, so she didn't save the pervert being used as an opportunity to eat tofu. In addition, Ryan is still trying to keep up with Hermione's progress. This is good news for Harry and Ron, because with Ryan taking the initiative, Hermione has no time to pay too much attention to them. But the teachers arranged so many homework, they had to spend most of their free time in the library, sighing, yawning, and trying to complete the heavy homework. I will never remember this. One afternoon, Ron couldn't stand it anymore. He threw the quill pen and stared at the blue sky of the same color as the forget-me-not outside the window. This is a very good weather, but so that they can only squat in the library. Harry just looked at 1,000 kinds of magical herbs and fungi for Ixian, and suddenly he heard Ron say, "Hagrid, what are you doing in the library?" Hagrid came over and kicked, hiding something behind him. He wore a moleskin coat and looked very out of place. "Look whatever you want," Hagrid said. His voice dodged and drew their interest at once. "What are you doing here?" He suddenly looked suspicious. "Still looking for Nicoleem, right?" "Oh, we figured out who he was hundreds of years ago," Ron said triumphantly. "We still know what the dog is guarding. It's a magic stone." "Hush," Hagrid said again. "Listen, come to me later. Remember, I didn't promise to tell you anything, but don't yell here. There are things that students shouldn't know. They will think I told you. So, see you later," Harry said. Hagrid kicked away. Ryan was disturbed by the movement here at this time. He raised his head and looked at Hagrid suspiciously, because in his impression Hagrid is not a person who likes reading, especially the library is basically insulated from Hagrid. Plus one thing in his memory was about to happen, so he decided to check what Hagrid was reading to confirm. After a few minutes, Ryan threw a pile of books on the table and startled Hermione, who was writing. "What are you doing?" Hermione asked angrily, and Harry and Ron looked at Ryan puzzled. "Dragon," Ryan whispered. "Hagrid is looking for information about dragons. Look at these, dragon species in Great Britain and Ireland, from hatching eggs to nirvana, dragon breeding guide." "Why should he watch this? Does he really get a dragon?" "This is not possible," said Ron. "Everyone knows at the Wizards' conference in 2017 that the ban on dragon farming was officially passed. This is what everyone knows. If we raise dragons in the back garden, it will be difficult. Don't let Muzz notice us, and it's very difficult to tame them. which is very dangerous. You really should look at Charlie's burned places, which were left to him by Romanian wild dragons. Don't say that living dragons and dragon eggs are strictly regulated products. Even if they are really on the black market, it is not affordable for Hagrid, a forest ranger. Hagrid always wanted a dragon. When I saw him for the first time, he said this to me, maybe he could actually get a dragon. Harry said. What exactly does Hagrid want to do? Asked Hermione, who was confused by the boys. I think it's better to ask. Let's guess here is useless, Ryan concluded. An hour later, they knocked on the door of the cabin guarded by the hunting ground. They were surprised to find that all the curtains were pulled tightly. Ryan felt that there was something to be done. After all, with the height of the windows of the Hagrid house and the ambiguity of the glass, as long as the outside of the window was closed, no one could see anything, and the curtains would cause doubt. Hagrid first shouted, "Who is it?" before letting them enter the room, and then quickly turned back and closed the door. The cabin was suffocatingly hot. Despite such a warm sunny day, there was still a blazing fire in the fireplace. Hagrid poured tea for them and brought a ferret sandwich, which they politely declined. After, Harry began to find a way to set Hagrid's words, trying to figure out what mechanism guarded the magic stone. Under Hermione's slightly childish praise, Hagrid told everyone that every professor has set up an institution in it. But in Ryan's view, these things were deliberately revealed by Hagrid. Although he is long and bulky, it gives a sense of honesty. But in any case, he is a man in his 60s. With Hagrid's life experience, it is absolutely impossible for the first-year students to easily speak out. Sure enough, this should be Dumbledore's savior nurturing plan. But in the original world, you reads www.uukanzu.com. Dumbledore probably thought that Quirrell just wanted to steal or was instructed to steal a magic stone, but he did not expect Voldemort to stick to Quirrell's back. Otherwise, with Dumbledore's character, he wouldn't risk Harry Potter faced with the boss after being met by Voldemort. As Harry's question to Hagrid came to an end, Ryan pretended to be curious and pointed at a large black egg lying under the kettle in the middle of the fire. Is it? Hagrid looked a little uneasy. He flashed his words and said, "That's so. This is a class restricted trading item stipulated by the Ministry of Magic." Ron squatted by the fire and examined the big egg more closely. "And it's something that will immediately become an S-type item." Ryan looked closely and then said, "What?" Harry was a little confused, not knowing what puzzle Ron and Ryan played. Lane saw the confusion on the faces of Hermione and Harry and explained, "In the Ministry of Magic's classification of dangerous goods, Dragon Egg is a Class A controlled item, while Living Fire Dragon is a Class S." "How come?" Harry exclaimed. "Every student has a pair of dragon leather gloves and an ounce of dragon liver only needs 1 gallon. How can such a common thing be controlled so tightly?" "It's very simple. Most of the dragon products on the market are some dragon blood and dragon." After that, Ron turned his head to look at Hagrid. "It must have cost you a lot of money." "He won," Hagrid said. "Last night, I was drinking in the village and playing cards with a stranger." To be honest, the man probably just couldn't get rid of it. Looking at Hagrid's frowning, Ryan felt that this was a new trouble. Chapter 36, Norwegian Ridgeback. It is illegal to raise a dragon, which is common sense in the magic world, but Ryan looked at Hagrid's excited look now, thinking that he might not accept persuasion and give up his dream of raising a dragon. Sure enough, when Hermione pointed out that Hagrid lived in a wooden house, and a fire dragon inside might have destroyed all this, Hagrid is still very excited to introduce them to the knowledge of this dragon. "I watched Raising Dragons for Recreation and Profit, and the book said to put the eggs in the fire because their mother exhaled at them. You see, what it says here, after it hatches, every half feed him a bucket of brandy and chicken blood for an hour. Look at this again, how to distinguish between different eggs. I got a Norwegian Ridgeback, very rare." Ryan watched Hagrid happily humming Siaqua while fiddle with the fire, and felt Hermione's persuasion was useless. Maybe it was only after Hagrid raised the dragon for a while and suffered some losses come wake up. Furthermore, Ryan has almost officially mastered Crazy Dave's novice plant breeding guide. Now he intends to breed a special plant of his own. After the dragon hatches, he may be able to get some dragon-related things to cultivate plants. The next time, Harry and Ron also began to accept the review plan made by Hermione. But then they are even more irritable, because now there is another dragon besides the magic stone to worry about. They think it will go crazy sooner or later. Then, during breakfast one day, Hedwig gave Harry another Hagrid note. There are only 4 words written on it. It's almost out of the shell. Ron didn't want to take a herbal medicine class. He wanted to go straight to Hagrid's hut. Hermione and Ryan strongly disagreed. Ron wanted to argue, but Ryan interrupted him roughly. "Shut up," Lane said. "This is not the place to discuss this issue. Have you not seen a group of Slytherins coming over for breakfast?" Ron was disappointed and ate jam bread. They didn't find free time until the noon break. As soon as the bell rang, they quickly dropped the shovel, hurried across the field, and ran towards the edge of the forest forbidden area. Hagrid greeted them, and he was very excited with red light. "It's coming out soon." He let them into the hut. Lane, Ryan and Professor Sprout have some questions to ask. Every time he takes an herbal medicine class, he stays in the greenhouse for a long time, and he will come after a while, Hermione said to Hagrid. When Ryan hurriedly came from the greenhouse, Xialong was born. The newly born dragon has rumpled wings and is about the size of a chicken. 1 or 2 sparks choked occasionally in his mouth. Hagrid, who was bitten into his finger while trying to touch Xialong, said happily, "God, look, it knows its mother." Ryan saw this scene and swallowed back the advice that had come to her mouth. At least Hagrid, who is in joy today, absolutely can't listen to the advice. When Xialong grows up and all kinds of problems come out, he will use the facts to advise Hagrid. When they left Hagrid's hut and returned to the castle, the system sent a reminder to Ryan. Malfoy did not find this dragonborn. Get the offset point 2 points. Well, there is now an offset of 22 points. Ryan looked at her offset points and smiled with satisfaction. But when he thought of Hagrid's attempt to raise dragons indoors, he calmed his smile again. After all, it would be very difficult for a ferocious animal fanatic to give up raising dragons. Lane's guess became a reality. Longueuran is not a domestic animal, at least not for Hagrid, but Hagrid still refuses to give up. In just 1 week, the length of the dragon was already 3 times the original one. A cloud of smoke spewed from its nostrils. Hagrid put aside the work of guarding the hunting grounds, because Xialong made him squander. The floor was filled with empty brandy bottles and chicken feathers. When Ryan once went to see Hagrid, Hagrid's big face showed a maternal color to tease Xialong. I decided to call it noble. Hagrid looked at Xialong with his tearful eyes, and said, "It really knows me now. You guys look at noble. Where is my mother?" Lane saw this scene and felt a bit uncomfortable. After all, such a big 5 and 3 thick people press their throats to make such a sound. It makes people feel that Han Mao is standing upright. But Ryan stepped forward to persuade Hagrid. Hagrid, at this growth rate, it can grow as big as your house in 2 weeks, and you can't hide it at school. Besides, I have seen the wizard. According to the law, raising a dragon without permission is a felony punishable by imprisonment for Azkaban. Not to mention that the dragon is a natural Sky King. His nature is not suitable for the house you are raising, even if it is for Norba, you should let go. It was obvious that Ryan's remarks touched Hagrid a little. He bit his lip. I know I can't keep it forever. I also know that I should let it go quickly. Dumbledore helped me a lot, and I shouldn't trouble him anymore. But I can't just do it. It is thrown away. It is too small to survive independently. Hagrid really loves these animals. Compared with those who have risen to raise pets in their previous lives, and then have a little dissatisfaction, they throw away their pets. Hagrid is the real animal protector. But now this problem still needs to be solved. Ron thought about it and said, "My brother Charlie raises a dragon in Romania. We can give this dragon to him. I think he must have a way to take care of this dragon. This should be the best way for Norba," Hagrid said while crying, and from time to time he took out a large handkerchief to wipe the corners of his eyes. Finally, in front of Hagrid, Ron wrote a letter to his brother inquiring about this matter. The week after was like a year, and at about 12 p.m. on Wednesday, Ryan and Hermione sat in the common room and started the revival mode. This is when Harry and Ron crawled in through the hole in the lounge. They were dressed in invisibility and had just gone to Hagrid to feed Norba. "Lane, help me see what happened to Ron's hand," Harry said to Ryan as soon as he came in, because he had watched Ryan have been in the common room and felt like he knew a medicine, and Chinese medicine was in the West. There is not much difference between human eyes and magic. Obviously, Ryan was shown because Ron's situation was not suitable for Madame Pomfrey. Ron stretched out a finger wrapped in a handkerchief. Ryan opened the handkerchief and found that the wound should have been bitten by a dragon. There are some green marks on the teeth and redness and swelling. Damn, why is this dragon poisonous on his teeth? Wait for me, I'll get something. After that, Ryan ran upstairs, leaving 3 people looking at each other in the common room. Chapter 37, Send Away the Dragon. Within a few minutes, Ryan came down the stairs with a small box in his hand. Open the box. The box is divided into 2 parts. On the left are some medical devices. On the right are bottles of thumb-sized belly, filled with liquids. This box was made by him after obtaining plant planting inheritance and traditional Chinese medicine inheritance. The equipment was mailed to his parents. Some of the liquid in the bottle is the essence of plant extracts in the world of Plants vs. Zombies, and the other is to keep the better done when practicing potions on weekdays. Opening the box, Ryan took a needle from the syringe and picked out a thin tooth about the same length as the rice grain from Ron's wound. "What is this?" several people asked in surprise. Ryan put that fine tooth in an empty bottle and then explained, "I read from the book that many fire dragons will grow a special tooth to secrete venom when they are young. This kind of fine teeth will slowly melt in the opponent's wound after biting the opponent, releasing toxins to make the other party's wound healing more difficult. After using cotton tweezers to hold cotton with alcohol and soapy water to clean Ron's wounds, the wounds were finally covered with Ryan's own improved medicaments. Okay, it's done. It just depends on the situation. After all, there is no way to cure dragon bite in the medicine I learned." "It's all right, brother, it's fine." Ron looked at the wound wrapped in clean gauze. "At least now it doesn't hurt that much." When Ryan finished the treatment and packed things up, there was a sound of beating from the dark window. Hedwig sent Charlie's letter. In the letter, Charlie said that he would be happy to adopt this Norwegian Ridgeback, but he told Lane that they needed Saturday midnight to take the Ridgeback to the highest tower. He has a few reliable friends where he can use the flying broom to take the dragon away in the dark. After all, This dragon cannot be discovered by others. Ryan looked at each other. After all, it was a very dangerous thing to take a dragon through the whole castle at night. Too easy to be discovered by the teachers who patrol the night. But Harry finally suggested that he had an invisibility cloak, enough to cover the two porters and Norbert. That was all settled. Ron's fingers were only slightly red and swollen the next morning, and he seemed to be healed. In another day his fingers were completely cured. This made Ron amazed at Ryan's medical skills, and the boasted Ryan was a little embarrassed. Lean found a noon time to tell Hagrid a specific time to send the dragon. At the entrance of Hagrid's room, he found the hound dog Teeth sitting outside the door with a bandage on his tail. Hagrid opened the window and talked to him. "I can't let you in," he said breathlessly. "Norbert is hard to deal with now. I can't take it." Lane told him about Charlie's letter. His eyes were full of tears. This may also be because Norbert just bit his leg. "Oh. It's okay, it only bit my boot," says it playing in the end. "It's still a little baby girl." Little baby girl knocked against the wall with his tail, and the window rattled. Lean showed his self-seeking expression of blessing and said goodbye to Hagrid. On the way back to the castle, he felt more and more that he had to send the dragon away on Saturday before he could make the best decision. Arrived Saturday, it was dark at night, and the sky was covered with dark clouds. Ryan and they went out together to go to Hagrid's solitaire. Originally Harry and Ron said that both of them were enough, but Ryan told them that if something blocked the road, you would probably be late. "I was responsible for guiding those who blocked the road, and you just walked in." The final result was that the three of them started off with their cloaks together. Sure enough, Pippi was playing tennis against the wall in the hall. Ryan walked out of the invisibility cloak, and secretly walked in the other direction, making a sound that attracted Pippi. After a round of flicking away Pippi, Ryan came to the hall and found that Harry had left. Standing in the hall, Ryan suddenly felt that it was a bit boring to go back to the dormitory now. "I haven't been to the Forbidden Forest to check in for so long. Now it's almost over, and if you don't go to this semester, you won't have a chance. Think about that, you still have a bunch of magical plants to use. There should be no danger if you do not go deep into the core area in the Forbidden Forest." Ryan made up his mind to walk out of the hall and sneak towards the Forbidden Forest. Passing Hagrid's hut, he could still hear a huge sobbing sound inside. It seemed to Hagrid that sending Xia along away really hurt him. On the edge of the Forbidden Forest, Ryan saw a small intestinal path that gradually hid into the depths of the black jungle. Walking along this road, the plants grew densely, and the complete sky disappeared. Only occasionally a moonlight sprinkled through the clouds from the branches above, illuminating the path. It's just that this light does not bring a sense of security, but this dim light makes the branches of the surrounding trees look more clawed. Lane took a lantern grass from the shop, and the darkness around you. Reading www.yuukanzu.com was quickly transformed into light by lantern grass. He felt that some eyes peeping in the dark also disappeared, and it seems that the lantern grass also has some effects to dispel evil. Walked along the path for a while, Ryan suddenly found some silver blue light on the ground. He leaned forward to find that this was not reflected moonlight, but some liquid. The time when Voldemort killed the unicorn should not be now. What about the blood of these unicorns on this ground? Lean thought while weighing whether to catch up. Finally curiosity overwhelmed fear, and he began to follow the blood. The suspected blood stains reflected a very bright light under the illumination of lantern grass. This is not just the reflection of light, but also has some luminous effects after reacting with the magic contained in the lantern grass light. Ryan walked over a mossy tree stump and could hear the sound of gurgling water. Obviously, there was a stream somewhere nearby. On the winding road, there are still scattered blood stains. The only thing to be thankful is that the amount of bleeding does not seem to be large, and this unicorn should not be life-threatening. After walking for more than 10 minutes, he was about to approach the edge of the core area of the Forbidden Forest. Ryan still saw nothing. Thinking about it, it was not too early. As soon as he was about to give up tracking, he heard some strange sounds behind the bushes. He stepped forward and bowed the bush quietly. The scene after that made him open his mouth in surprise. Ryan felt that this was the most beautiful picture he had seen in his life. Several unicorns were next to each other, rubbing each other intimately with their necks, and the moonlight shone on their water-like soft fur with a silvery luster. This peaceful and sacred scene made Ryan lose his mind. Chapter 38, Unicorn in the Forbidden Forest. Just as Ryan looked at the beautiful scenery, suddenly the leading unicorn made a hissing sound as if he had found something. With this hiss, all the unicorns turned their heads in the direction of Ryan's hiding. Lane swallowed nervously, because he knew that adult unicorn werewolves were not opponents one-on-one. Not to mention the small group of 5 or 6 in front of me. It is estimated that the dragon is big when he comes. In this case, running is definitely not possible. In the woods, humans can't run this natural elf anyway. So Ryan decided to go out and face the unicorn. After all, unicorns are creatures of the good camp, and they should not have the habit of killing innocents indiscriminately. Thought that Ryan pulled the branch and walked to the open space where the unicorn was. Looking across the open space and the unicorn herd, tension made Ryan lose his judgment on time. It may have been a long time, or a little time. The lead unicorn finally looked away, and the rest of the unicorn relaxed. It's just that they still stay on this open space. Lane took a breath and simply sat on the grass to watch the unicorn's actions. After all, even for wizards, the chance of facing a group of unicorns in the wild is rare. When the unicorns were scrubbed, Ryan found that the right leg of a unicorn seemed to be injured, and a black mist radiated around a wound, and silver blood continued to flow down. Seeing this scene, Ryan stood up and walked slowly past like a group of unicorns. The unicorns started a little riot, and then looked at him with a watchful eye. Ryan walked to a distance of 4 or 5 meters from the unicorn, and then said, "I saw one of you has a leg injury, and it is likely to be attacked by some kind of black magic. It is difficult to heal. I think I have something can help him." The legendary unicorn is a very clever and pure magical creature, so Ryan tries to explain their purpose to them, hoping that the unicorn can understand and respond. 10 seconds later, the leading unicorn screamed friendly at Ryan twice, and could hear it accept his goodwill, but he refused to let Ryan approach. It is true that unicorns only accept women's approach. Ryan thought they would act in a hurry. "I really don't understand what is the difference between a man and a man for a unicorn. They are clearly not a species with humans." Since he couldn't get close, Ryan took out a new lantern grass and placed it on the ground. Dozens of crystals of the sun lay in a leaf next to it. With Ryan's mastery of planting and traditional Chinese medicine, he discovered that these sun crystals produced by sunlight sunflowers are not only sunlight, but also contain the power of light and life, and this kind of power can just expel and neutralize the dark power damage. After putting these things away, Ryan backed up 7 or 8 steps and spread his hands to show that he was not malicious. Obviously, the unicorn as a magical creature can also feel the light and life force inside. The leading unicorn dangled the lantern grass and placed it on the hind leg of the injured unicorn. Then the crystals of all the sunlight on the leaf were sent to the mouth of the injured unicorn. The injured unicorn sticks out his tongue, licks all the sunlight into his mouth, and swallows it. After that, the whole unicorn began to glow like the moonlight. As these rays were produced, some black mist emerged from the wound on the hind leg of the unicorn. The mist seemed to consciously dig back into the wound, but was quickly attracted to the lantern grass and turned into light in the lantern that had grown on the lantern. As stated in the introduction to lantern grass, other plants absorb light to expel oxygen, while lantern grass absorbs darkness to emit light. Although this is neither scientific nor magical, the reason why the unicorn's wounds did not heal was the hindrance of black magic. When the black magic remnants like tarsal maggots were cleared away, a soft silver light flashed by. The wound on its leg was completely healed. The leading unicorn saw this scene, uttered a grateful tweet at Ryan, and then took this small group of unicorns into the forest and slowly disappeared. In Ryan's observation, when the unicorn left the open space in the forest, the silver light slowly faded away. When they ran under a tree that was not illuminated by moonlight, the silver light on them also disappeared. It turns out that the unicorns have just used the moonlight to stimulate the magic of the body to expel the black magic attached to the wound. Following this clue, the brain quickly filled the whole incident. Today, Voldemort's cello consort should come out to survive on the blood of a unicorn. But on the one hand, it may be that the body of the Voldemort Quillo has not deteriorated to the most serious degree, so he has not killed and drained the unicorn's blood, so as not to attract Dumbledore's attention. On the other hand, it is also possible that after the Voldemort cello complex wounded a unicorn again, it attracted a group of unicorns. The complex felt that it was very unlikely that it could do all this in a short time, so it chose go away. The unicorns chose to go to a safe place to heal their companions. After confirming the departure of the unicorn herd, Ryan found 7 or 8 unicorn tail hairs where the unicorn herd had just stood. This thing can cost 10 gold gallons and one must not be wasted. Note 1. After putting these bright silver tail hairs in the robe pocket, Ryan felt that today's harvest was simply unexpected. So he thought it was better to go back to the bed in the dormitory now. But when Ryan just turned around, he heard a big animal coming towards this side. Before he could hide, a white shadow flashed through the forest in front. Could it be that the unicorns haven't gone yet, or are there other animals? After all, the forest is very large. Even Hagrid can't tell how many magical creatures there are, because there is no way to judge whether the coming creature is malicious. In order to avoid being hurt, Lane chose to lean against a stone and pulled out her wand to look around. At the same time, 2 pots of lantern grass, 2 pots of dragon grass and 2 pots of machine gun peas were placed in front of them to set up a line of defense. While he was staring nervously at the darkness in the forest, suddenly there was a light laughter in the forest. Nervous Ryan almost ordered the plant to attack the place where the sound was made, but he finally suppressed his impulse. It is not a good idea to attack rashly without knowing whether it is an enemy or a friend. What's more, launching at the place where the sound is emitted may not be able to hit the target, but it will expose your own strength and lead to a disadvantage. After the real battle begins, the atmosphere became more and more depressed, when Ryan was just about to leave. Finally, the voice rang again, and it was actually in English. "Hey, little guy, don't be excited, I won't hurt you." Chapter 39, Horseman. Lane was surprised to hear this sentence, because it was the voice of an adult woman, but it was not the same as any professor in the school. Fortunately speaking, It means being able to communicate, so there is hope to avoid meaningless fighting. So Ryan summoned the courage and shouted, I have no malice and no intention to hurt anyone. I can exit the forest now. Now, don't be so nervous. I just want to thank you for your help to the unicorns. The voice just fell, and a figure came out of the jungle. Horse, Ryan exclaimed in a low voice, and this was actually a female horseman who had never appeared in the novel. But think about it too. The horses didn't grow out of the ground. How could there be only men? This female horse looks like she is in her 30s, wearing a delicate brown leather armor, with a black page hammer hanging around her waist. The part of her horse is white, with a round shield and her bow and arrow hanging on the left and right sides of the body. Lane looked at her without holding a weapon, and then put away the plants and expressed her friendliness. She walked in front of Ryan with an elegant pace, then bent down and said to Ryan, Mars is slowly becoming brighter. Everyone thinks this is a bad omen, and she stubbornly believed that the will of God is not in violation. I think that sometimes it is our duty to help the innocent and it is part of God's will. That's why I came out today, and I saw you cure the unicorn here. This is what I should do. After all, for those elves in the forest, as long as capable normal people see them in danger, they will help. Ryan said with his head raised. Yeah, what kind of monster do you think will attack the unicorn? Asked the horsewoman. I don't know very well, but I found that the injured unicorn seems to have lost a lot of blood. Oh my god. It's too bad. Is this prediction true? But the horse's prediction was not without errors. I hope this is also a mistake, the horsewoman said to herself with her head raised. Ryan looked at the horses as if in a daze there, and then said out loud, yes, I haven't introduced myself yet. My name is Ryan Liang, a first-year student at Gryffindor College. I met during a night tour after catching some silver liquid. She chased it out of curiosity. As a result, the unicorn was cured by chance. This is not a coincidence. Unicorns are not so easy to trust humans. The horsewoman said, My name is Betty, from the nearby tribe of horses and horses. I am here to protect this group of unicorns from external dark forces. Infringement. Because unicorns don't trust men, I was appointed to protect them. Then why did the unicorn allow me to heal? Ryan asked puzzled. It's very simple. On the one hand, you are still a foal. You can barely accept male unicorns without puberty. On the other hand, at this point, Betty looked up at the sky. I can see a lot of life thanks to you from you. You have saved at least thousands of innocent lives. I can even feel the natural gratitude that you once fought against a large number of destructive unnatural monsters, although this natural gratitude is a little different from the one I am familiar with. My sanity tells me that this is not possible. But I firmly believe that the secret that the stars show you is true, so unicorns can accept it. The treatment of friends of nature like you is also understandable. Speaking of which, Betty the centaur moved his face closer. While looking up and down at Ryan, he said, I am very curious about how you little guy did it. After all, our leaders have struggled for nature for a lifetime, and they have received less natural gratitude than you, let alone those around you. Some strange plant helpers that are favored by nature. Well, I'm a bit bitter, so I can't tell you what I did. I can only say that what you saw is true. Lane said a little embarrassedly. Really, I think I can fully believe that people who are favored by nature are at ease, and what I see will not be told to anyone. After all, everyone will have their own secrets. Betty said seriously. But I think as a student, you should not come out now, nor should you be so close to the core of the dangerous forest. I will send you out now. Finally, Betty took a large basket from behind the tree and put Ryan in. Reassure? This was originally intended for me to collect the hay from the floor when I was sleeping. It was very clean. Then hang all weapons on one side and the basket on the other. Lane discovered that the horsemen were indeed a race close to nature. Even if Betty was trotting, she could avoid the dense branches traversing the road and walk flat in the forest. By the way, you just heard me say that after the unicorn lost a lot of blood, what did it say about prophecy? Of course, if this involves the secret of you or your ethnic group, then I don't ask. Ryan asked his inner question after sitting in the basket and adjusting his posture. Of course this is not a secret. Let me think about where to start. Well, do you know what is the use of unicorn blood? Betty asked. I don't know, Ryan said a bit strangely when he heard the question. We only used its horns and tail hair in the potion class. I also felt a little curious, but the book I flipped implied the use of unicorns. The blood of the beast is an evil act. This is because it is a brutal thing to attack the unicorn to obtain blood, and the power obtained by killing the unicorn by sucking the blood while sucking blood is the most powerful. It is also extremely evil behavior. Betty said, only the most cruel and evil people will commit such a big crime. They want to escape the laws of nature and continue their life that is no longer normal. Speaking of this, Betty hit a chill, as if something terrible had happened. After slowing down, Betty went on to say, as long as you have a breath, the unicorn's blood can save your life. Only this will be cursed by nature, and the blood drinker will have a half-dead life, a cursed life. This kind of life is better than death. It is estimated that only those who are in urgent need of life and have alternatives to make it. As far as I know, the magic stone seems to be hidden in Hogwarts Castle. Then, Ryan had just finished speaking. Betty put her finger in front of her mouth and made a quiet gesture. We saw it, and Mars became bright again. I think you know what will happen, but please don't say it because we don't want to be involved in your shaman's affairs for a while. Besides, you are still a fool and should not be worried about these things. At this time Betty walked to a path less than 20 meters away from the forbidden forest. She picked Ryan from the frame and put it on the ground. I don't want to meet other people, just lead the way. After that, I took out a small silver ring from the quiver and threw it to Ryan. You helped the unicorns, and I want to thank them in their place. When you have time to go to Greece, there is a temple of Charon on Crete. This ring will tell you the specific location of the temple. You hold this, find the ring, and my teacher will give you the gift you deserve. Finally, Betty turned around and flicked her tail, walked into the jungle and left. Chapter 40. The exam is near. Ryan walked out of the woods and looked at his pocket watch by the moonlight, and was surprised to find that the time had passed 12 o'clock. He hurried to the castle. Passing through Hagrid's hut, he found that the light of the hut had been extinguished. It seemed that Hagrid had recovered from the pain of losing the dragon, and now he had fallen asleep. Walked into the gate of the castle. Ryan's spirit was highly tense. He cast an immature phantom spell on himself, and then bypassed a few large stairs. Slowly returned to the Gryffindor Tower from several small detours. But he didn't see any patrolling teacher until he walked up to the portrait of Fat Lady. Lane was surprised by his luck. After returning to the dormitory, he simply washed and then went to bed in the dark. When having breakfast the next day, Ryan sat in front of the long table in the Gryffindor hall with dark circles. Sure enough, staying up late in 20s does not mean that you are 11 years old. Try to come back as early as possible for the next night tour. When eating today, the people around seemed to be more noisy than usual, and Lane heard them say Harry Potter several times. What happened? Asked Percy next to Ryan. You don't look well. No wonder you don't know. Last night my brother Ron and Harry both deducted 100 points in one breath. It was a bit disappointing. Percy shook his head helplessly replied. This time there was no Malfoy whistle. Harry, how did they deduct the points? Lane thought puzzled. I guess I can't guess it, and Ryan wants to ask Harry to ask them. It's just that Harry and Ron have been hiding from others during class. It wasn't until the end of the afternoon class that Ryan found Harry in an empty classroom. Hermione was already here, counting Harry and Ron constantly. Ryan sat by the side listening to Hermione's count, and finally figured out how Harry had been caught. After breaking up in the hall, the two of them went directly to Hagrid and received the dragon in a wooden box. Then all the way to the astronomical tower smoothly calculated by time when they received the dragon into the castle. Ryan was still wandering with Pippi ghosts. No wonder when Ryan rushed to the foyer later, he didn't see Harry and them. At that time they were already upstairs. It's just that after sending the dragon away, the two people who were too excited forgot to bring the cloak. As a result, they swaggered around the castle. It was easy to be caught by Filch. No wonder Ryan didn't meet the inspectors when he came back last night, because Filch had taken Harry to the Professor McGonagall at that time, and no one was patrolling the corridor. After Hermione criticized Harry and they turned around and said to Ryan, "You are just lucky, don't be so rash next time. If yesterday Pippi hired another nighttime professor, then we won't get 100 points. Yesterday it's 150 points." Ryan originally thought that the storm caused by Harry's deductions would soon pass, but he didn't expect the situation to get worse. Harry was one of the most popular characters in the school, but now it has suddenly become a target. Even the students of Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff didn't look good to him, because everyone had always wanted to see Slytherin lose the college cup. No matter where Harry went, people pointed at him and did not lower his voice when he said something that insulted him. On the other hand, whenever he passed by the Slytherins, they always applauded, whistled, and cheered. "Thank you, Potter, you helped us a lot." Ron is also very painful, because now everyone except his brother is not willing to talk to her. Lane thinks this situation is campus bullying, which is very bad. But he couldn't change their malice against Harry in the college. In Ryan's view, this was purely caused by the jealousy of his classmates caused by Harry's previous reputation, and the students of Gryffindor were also emotionally inclined, which made the atmosphere in the college very bad. However, the Ryan who is close to 30 in psychological age, when he sees a group of children bullying a child, he always wants to intervene to take care of it, not to mention that this campus bullying is completely incompatible with Ryan's morality. Therefore, he suggested to the classmates that he should give Harry a chance to correct the problem during the evening homework discussion time. After all, as a Gryffindor student, deductions are a relatively common thing. Today everyone treats this because of the deductions. So who will be treated tomorrow? Furthermore, at this time, Gryffindor students should not infuriate and let other college students read jokes. After saying this, it still had some effect. Although the students still didn't talk to Harry, at least they would not insult him in front of him. In addition, Ryan and Hermione also tried to answer questions in each class, trying to recover some of the points deducted. But Harry still looked in a bad mood. He is now sitting in a corner of Ryan's study group with Ron and can't be seen by others, silently reviewing until late at night every day, constantly trying to memorize complex potion recipes, remember those magics and mantras, Remember the dates of major magic inventions and goblin rebellions. One day Ryan and Hermione asked each other in the library and answered various knowledge. Ron was carrying a sky chart quietly beside him. After all, it was only a week away from the exam. Harry suddenly came in from outside at this time, telling Ryan they heard that Quirrell probably had succumbed to Snape, and he heard Quirrell surrender to the evil forces. Ron said after listening, "This means that the road to the magic stone in front of Snape has been cleared." After all, he is a professor and was applied for the position of the Black Magic Defense class many times. This shows that he should have enough ways to come dealing with the three-headed roadway. What should we do now? Tell the principal, Dumbledore. Ryan rubbed his forehead and said, "After all, the magic stone was placed in the school by Dumbledore, and he is the greatest white wizard who has the power to fight against all who watch the magic stone. Forces of evil forces." Hermione also added, "If you act alone this time, you may be fired, Harry." But Harry still objected to telling Dumbledore about it because he thought that the weak Cullo would not stand on their side to testify for them. If Cello is the murderer behind the scenes, it is even less likely to testify, Lane whispered, but everyone ignored him, and everyone knows that they have hatred against Snape, and there is not enough evidence to be impossible. Let Snape plead guilty. The most important thing is that Harry feels that students should not know the magic stone and Luwai in theory. If Dumbledore is told, it is difficult to explain. Sure enough, this is the child's thinking. Cannot distinguish the importance of things. Dumbledore should have known what everyone did during the night tour. However, in order not to destroy Dumbledore's warrior training plan, Ryan did not point this out, and let Harry Potter do what he wanted. Chapter 41, Examination. The day after the discussion in the library, Harry and Ron received the confinement notice. That night, Ryan and Hermione were practicing a metamorphosis spell at the table. Harry and Ron rushed in from the outside, and after sitting down, before breathing, they began to talk about what he and Ron met in the Forbidden Forest at night. Sure enough, they met Voldemort, who was sucking blood. But because no one was making trouble this time, Harry met the unicorn a little earlier than the original. Although the unicorn was seriously injured, it still saved its life and is now recovering from the Marin tribe. In addition, the Marin also gave an unlucky prediction. The Horseman's prophecy shows that Voldemort will make a comeback. They saw all this from the astrology. Harry said excitedly, "I thought Snape just wanted to make a magic stone to make a fortune, but he wanted to give the magic stone to Voldemort in the Forbidden Forest to help him come back. Please, don't say that name," Ron said tremblingly. But Harry continued excitedly, "Wait for Voldemort to get the magic stone, and then rush into the castle to kill me. Then this prediction will be fully realized." "Harry," Ryan raised his voice and interrupted Harry's endless talk, "as far as I know, all the prophecies are vague and have multiple interpretations. Certainly you should not conclude that you are pointing too clearly the answer. Not to mention that Dumbledore is also in the castle. I don't think anyone can rush in to kill you. And it's less than a week before the exam. I think going to bed early to maintain tomorrow's good condition is the most important. Yes, it's no use thinking now." Harry seemed to be choked, and then they and Ryan climbed the stairs back to the dormitory and rested. Time won't go any slower because of someone's nervous Voldemort's movements. With the passing of the week, Ryan's final exam at Hogwarts' first year begins. Exams are the most annoying and frightening things for students, but they are an indispensable part of a student's career. This has always been the case at home and abroad, even at the Magical School of Magic Hogwarts. Fortunately, Ryan comes from a country that is good at exams and often exams. Hogwarts' first year review of this kind of exam is very easy compared to the weekly examination that year, the monthly exam once a month and the review before the college entrance examination. So when he was sitting in the examination room, holding a new feather pen that had read the anti-cheating mantra, he felt that he was confident. Is only the biggest difference from the ordinary people's test in the world, that is, Hogwarts test and magic hands-on projects. Each teacher's requirements are different. For example, Professor Flitwick told them to walk into the classroom one by one to see if they could make a pineapple dance across a desk. When Ryan watched the novel and saw this place, she wondered why pineapples don't take long taps. Later, after reading the operation of the previous classmates, I learned that I only need to let the pineapple twist while skipping the desk at the same frequency. This is much simpler than Ryan imagined adding 2 legs to the pineapple. Professor McGonagall watched them turn a mouse into a snuff box. The more exquisite the box, the higher the score. If there is still a mouse whisker on the box, it will be deducted. Ryan transformed a steampunk-style box full of pinion gears and reeds, and the gears on it could also mesh with each other. This is the technique he mastered after mastering the House of Winter Industry Manual. Ryan nodded when he saw Professor McGonagall applauding his work. In the underground potion classroom, Ryan's preparation of the forgetting potion was quite satisfactory. Fortunately, Harry drew Snape's attention completely. Otherwise, the professor stared at the back of the neck, and if there is no problem, the problem will be scared. Harry looked terrible these days, and he seemed to suffer from pre-test phobia like Neville. But everyone else is okay. The previous review was very comprehensive and very serious. So at least Ron and Hermione were confident when they took the exam. The last exam is the history of magic. As long as you persist for an hour, answering which quirky old wizards invented the automatic stirring crucible. They are free, and they can easily play for a full week until the test results are announced. When Professor Binns Ghost asked them to put down their quills and roll up the parchment that they answered, Lane couldn't help but cheer with the other students. "It's much easier than I thought," Hermione said when they came out with the crowd to the sunny ground outside. "I don't actually need to remember the code of conduct for werewolves in 1637, and the Goblin Rebellion. I'll tell you when I am reviewing, but you don't believe it," Ryan said. These events involved complex historical and political games and even affected the distribution of power in the magic world today. "Such a complex issue is not will be used to test our first-year students." Hermione began to relive the exam content, which reminded Ryan of the fear of the previous life when facing the school bully. Finally, under the repeated prompting of Ryan, Hermione finally closed her mouth. They slowly walked down a gentle to the lake and plopped under the tree. There, a big squid was lying in the warm shallow water to bask in the sun, and the twin brothers of Weasley and Lee Jordan were fiddled with its tentacles. "I never understood why squid live in such freshwater lakes. What do you think?" Hermione touched Ryan with her elbow. "It may be because this has a magical creature lineage, such as kraken or something. But seriously, every time I see this, I always think of squid or squid. But I think such a big squid must be very old, only suitable for making meatballs after breaking. My mother's specialty is squid meatballs." "Ah, I remember. The squid your mother made last time are really delicious." Hermione, who once tasted Mrs. Sally's craft at certain events in elementary schools and communities, said. Just as Ryan and Hermione's flying thoughts began to crook the floor, Harry's annoyed voice suddenly sounded. "My scars have been hurting. I used to hurt, but it has never been so frequent." "Go and see Madame Pomfrey," Hermione suggested. "I am not sick," Harry said. "I think this is a warning, means danger is coming. But Professor Dumbledore is here, and Hagrid will not betray Professor Dumbledore. No one can pass the guards of Luai, so you don't need to worry. Your scar may be because you are too nervous." "Yeah," Hermione followed and persuaded. "It's all exams. I woke up last night and was busy reviewing the notes of the deformed class. Then I suddenly remembered that we had taken the exam." Harry sat there without saying a word, as if thinking about something. Suddenly, he jumped up. Ryan and they were a little worried about Harry's condition and ran to the castle with him. Chapter 42, The End of the Period begins. Lane ran and asked Harry, "What happened? Why did you jump up and startled us?" "I suddenly remembered something," Harry said. His face turned pale. "We must go to Hagrid immediately." "Why?" Hermione asked breathlessly, trying to catch him. "Don't you think it's strange?" Harry said as he hurried down the grassy slope. "What Hagrid wants most is a dragon, and a stranger has a dragon egg in his pocket. How many people walking around with a dragon egg all day know that it is against the wizard's laws? Don't you think it's too lucky for them to find Hagrid?" "Why didn't I think of this before?" "What did you want?" Ron, who was at the end, asked breathlessly, but Harry only ran across the field and ran towards the forest without answering his question. They met Hagrid doing housework at the gate of Hagrid's hut. After some inquiries, Harry learned that Hagrid had played cards with a suspicious person and won the dragon egg. Even after Harry's questioning, they learned that the biggest weakness of the three-headed Luai was that he would fall asleep when he listened to music. And Hagrid was induced to tell the suspicious guy the weakness when he was drunk. Harry went to the castle afterwards, and Ryan they could only keep up. After reaching the cold hallway, Harry stopped. "We need to tell Professor Dumbledore that suspicious personnel have already obtained a way to subdue Luai," he said. "But obviously, no one knows where Professor Dumbledore's office is." At this time Professor McGonagall appeared. Harry came forward to tell his worries and warnings, but Professor McGonagall didn't believe him. She told Harry that although Professor Dumbledore was not in school, the magic stone was well protected and he didn't need to worry about it. After Professor McGonagall left, they met Professor Snape and were warned again. After, Harry tried to monitor the room where Luai was locked and Professor Snape, but was stopped by Lane. After all, as a first-year student to monitor the professors and the forbidden places where it is forbidden to go, even if it is really found to be wrong, there is no way to stop it. On the contrary, it may cause unnecessary injury or frighten the snake. Not to mention that as a professor, he has countless excuses and spells to keep away or avoid students. Simple surveillance is useless. After listening to Ryan's reasons, Harry had to give up his immature plan. Finally, Harry decided to take out the magic stone before the stone had been stolen. Ryan expressed extreme admiration for Harry's smashing transposition thinking. "Think of it as a good way to get the most from the smallest cost. You can give it a try." However, Hermione and Ron objected because the idea was too dangerous to be expelled. Ryan persuaded Ron and Hermione at this time, it's not a matter of not being fired, it's related to the peace of the entire magic world. But he still didn't change his face and continued, "And the life of our friend Harry is definitely more important than going to school. And we are to protect school property, and professors will not expel students for this reason." "We?" Harry asked with some surprise. "Of course." Ryan shrugged. "Can we watch you go on an adventure alone? You should also give us the credit for saving the world." Hermione and Ron also nodded in agreement. "Thank you, Thank you all. But I think my cloak may not fit 4 people, Harry said excitedly. You don't have to worry about this, Ryan said. I just learned the phantom body spell a while ago, and it should be barely usable. So as long as you can hold 3 people in your cloak, it's enough. Now that I have made up my mind, the next step is preparation time. After dinner, several people avoided the others and began to make various preparations in the corner of the common room. In fact, the people in the college did not pay much attention to Harry recently, which also facilitated their preparation. After that, their corner became quiet. Everyone was not interested in speaking, and could only hear Hermione reciting some mantras. Finally, it was more than 9 o'clock, because everyone was tired just after the exam, so they went back to the dormitory to sleep. Finally, only 4 of them were left in the common room. Now you can take the cloak, Ron said. Harry ran upstairs to get the cloak. Ryan took a rough canvas arm from his school bag and tied it to himself. There are 2 stuffed canvas bags and a row of glass bottles on the strap. When I first received the admission notice from Hogwarts, I thought that training wizards in the magic school required the same actual combat as the dragon and dungeon card games, and many adventures, so I did this. I think the wizarding world is no different from the ordinary world. Lean while adjusting the armed belt. You reading www.uukanzu.com said to the stunned Ron and Hermione looking aside. At this time, Harry also came down from the upstairs, and saw that Ryan's dress was stunned for a moment. Then took out the cloak. We'd better put on invisibility clothes here to see if it can cover all 3 of us if Filch sees a pair of feet walking on the ground by himself. After Ryan confirmed that there was no problem, Harry and the 3 of them walked in front with the cloak, and Ryan released a phantom curse to himself, following 5 or 6 meters behind them. After leaving the house, because today I have to do a big thing. So everyone is very nervous. They think every statue, every shadow may be a professor or Filch. On the way they met Mrs. Loris. It seemed to see Ryan, but perhaps because of the effect of the magic body curse, Mrs. Loris did not find anyone there. Just turned around and looked down, then lay down again. After the stairs on the 4th floor corridor, the biggest crisis Pippi ghost appeared. Thanks to Harry's clever movement, he mimicked the Bloodman Barrow's voice and scared Pippi away. But Ryan felt that as an elf at Hogwarts, he had been with the Bloodman Barrow for more than a few hundred years. There is no possibility that the fake camouflage sound of Harry Potter can deceive this possibility. It is estimated that this has been entrusted by Professor Dumbledore before. After all, in this school, only the principal can move the ghosts. Got rid of the Pippi ghost, and after a few seconds, they came out of the 4-armed corridor. The door had already opened a slit. It seems that even if they have already made the decision to take the magic stone in advance, they are still a little late. After all, it is more convenient for professors to walk in the castle after the curfew than for sneaking them. Chapter 43, Breakthrough. How about that? See, Harry whispered, Snape has passed Louis smoothly. Seeing the half-open door, they seemed to be more clearly aware of everything they were about to face. None of you want to leave now. I won't blame him. Harry said, you can take the invisibility cloak away. I don't need it anymore. Since I've been here, I won't flinch, Ryan said. Don't talk silly, Ron said. Let's go together, Hermione said. Harry pushed the door open. With the creak of the door opening, their ears immediately sounded a low bark. Although the big dog couldn't see them, all 3 of his noses twitched and sniffed wildly towards them. What's that at its feet? Hermione whispered. It looks like a harp, Ron said. It must have been Snape's stay. Obviously as soon as the music stops, it will wake up immediately. Harry just about to take out the clarinet delivered by Hagrid, and Ryan pulled out something from the small bag on his belt, and made the sound of ding dong dong dong. As soon as the voice sounded, the big dog's eyes began to droop down. Slowly, the barking of the big dog stopped. It wobbled a few times, his knees fell softly, and then it fell to the floor and fell asleep. The sound is a music box, which is what Ryan used to practice his hands in order to learn the Winter House Industrial Manual. After this music box is wound up, you can play for 3.5 minutes, Ryan said to Harry and them. This way we can calm down and free up our hands to do something else. It's incredible, Hermione said looking at the big dog that was falling in front of her. The book says that the 3-headed dog can even compete with the dragon. Now it is actually put down by a small music box, so the dragon is afraid. What? Would it be possible to put the dragon in the same ordinary thing? Okay, this is not the time to study these issues. The dog will wake up later. We should take advantage of this opportunity to pass here. After finishing, Ryan walked to the trapdoor and opened the trapdoor. Under the door is a dark mass. There is no place to step on. There is no imaginary ladder. Lean uses fluorescent flashing, looking down, but unfortunately still can't see anything. Fortunately, he has read the original and he knows what is below. Ryan turned around and climbed into the hole, then grabbed the edges with his hands and said to Harry, I use the floating mantra best, so I'll get off this place first. If I don't have any problems, please go to the professor. Come and save me. After he finished speaking, he let go of his hands and fell to the bottom of the cave. This distance is not low. Ryan felt that he was at least 4 or 5 floors high. Midway, Ryan released a floating spell to himself to slow down the speed of his fall. Finally, he felt that he had fallen on a soft thing. This should be the Devil's Internet Cafe. While Harry hadn't come down, Ryan smeared the knife with a potion that had an inhibitory effect on the miraculous plant, which was deducted a little while helping Professor Sprout work. Later, through the faint light of the entrance, he quickly cut off the chopstick-sized twigs and put them in the crystal medicine bottle that he carried with him. Because of the effect of the medicine, the devil's net did not react excessively. Quickly completed all this, Ryan found that his ankle had been entangled in the devil's net. He immediately shouted to the top, "There is a big devil net underneath, which can absorb shock when jumping down. But prepare a magic spell that can set fire, otherwise it will be troublesome if it gets caught." The voice just fell. Ryan saw the 3 black spots fall almost at the same time. He tried hard to lean on the side, hoping he would not be hit. However, there was still a shadow hitting Ryan, and he quickly aimed at the shadow and released the floating spell. Fortunately, there was a buffer for the spell, so that when he used the shadow, he just felt his arm fall slightly. Then came 2 collisions, and everyone had landed safely. At this time, the shadow that had just been put down came a voice. "Sorry Ryan, are you okay?" This should be Hermione. After Ryan made a sound of noise, Hermione's wand head began to emit a series of blue flames. The vines flinched from the light and warmth of these flames, loosening their entanglement. The plants twisted and twitched, automatically loosening the tendrils wrapped around them. "Let Ryan, you explore the way first, otherwise it would be a headache to encounter these things suddenly," Ron said to Ryan as he watched the retreating vines. "But why did you catch Hermione? Are you sure who is close to me to pick me up?" Ryan's voice did not fall. Harry pointed in a direction and said, "Go here." Lean looked in the direction he pointed and found that it was a stone corridor and the only way here. In this case, there is nothing to choose from. The 4 people walked out of the place where the devil's vines were entrenched and began to walk down the corridor. The corridor is very quiet. They heard the sound of water drops dripping slowly down the wall in addition to their own footsteps. Lane even suspected that this might have reached the bottom of the lake. As they walked the farther away, a new voice appeared. At the other end of the corridor, there seemed to be a soft rustle and a tinkling sound. "Feel the sound of a group of gold coins flying around with wings." They continued to move forward along the sound. Finally came to a brightly lit room with a high vaulted ceiling. Countless small birds as brilliant as gems fluttered around the room with flapping wings. There is a thick wooden door opposite the room. It is fully consistent with the description of some underground city entrances in the adventure story. "These birds will not attack us," Ron said. "I'll try it." Harry stopped everyone, and then he ran towards the wooden door opposite the room with his hand on his head. Wait until Harry reached the wooden door. The birds did not respond. It seems that they would not actively attack the people below. Seeing this, Ryan and they also came out of the tunnel, went through the room and came under the wooden door. Reached the edge of the wooden door. They tried to open the door, but it was useless to push or pull. Hermione tried her unlock spell again and it was still useless. Ryan took a steel rod with a flat slap from one end of his pocket, facing the door of the door. The hinge and the lock part were prying for a while, but unfortunately it had no effect. Finally, he smashed the wooden door and the surrounding walls with this steel rod. Then he turned and said to Harry, "This door and the surrounding wall should have protective magic, otherwise it will not hit the wooden door panel and the wall, and no traces can be left." Harry looked closely at the birds on his head, and then said, "It seems that we can only open this door according to the requirements of the designer of this level." Chapter 44, Crossing the Barrier. After hearing Harry's words, others also looked up at the birds on the roof. After careful observation, they found that the glittering things flying up and down were not birds at all, but keys with wings. Suddenly Harry cheered, "Yes, you see, flying broom. We must go up and catch the key to that door." Look at the flying broom and the keyhole on the wooden door that were set aside, and they knew at once what the trick was. When Harry was looking for the flying broom, he handed a small bottle of acid secreted from the moss of the tombstone to the stones on the side of the door frame, which were still intact. Sure enough, this level is not so simple. Wanting to break through the magic of doors and walls requires powerful magic power and rich knowledge. Otherwise, you can only chase those keys on a broom. Thought Voldemort wouldn't go riding a broom according to the idea of the person who arranged this level, because according to his suspicious psychology, he absolutely refuses to follow the method given by the enemy, and he will worry whether this is the enemy's trap. According to Voldemort's history, he has to master his own habit of everything, then he should use magic to catch the key. This also consumed Voldemort's not much magic power now. This is the same reason as Voldemort's cave entrance where he placed his Horcrux, which requires human bleeding, is to consume the enemy's power as much as possible before the enemy approaches the target. It's just that Dumbledore's method is even brighter than Voldemort's. Harry and Ron were already on the broomsticks at this time, while Ryan and Hermione, who could not fly at the same level, did not go up to the chaos. They stood back to back in the center of the hall, observing the keys needed in the group of keys in the sky. "Our goal is a big antique key, maybe silver, shaped like a door handle," Ron chanted before taking off. "Should be very close to the style and color of the door lock." Lane saw the two of them rush into the dense array of keys. They desperately grabbed and fished, but those enchanted keys dodged too fast, and it was almost impossible to catch them. When everyone is more and more anxious, Ryan feels that he has found the target. He shouted to Harry loudly, "I found the key, and you are in the upper right front position. The key is silver with sky blue wings and feathers all falling to the side as if it had been caught by someone. Ron apparently saw the key before Harry, and he rushed towards it. As a result, the key flew out of a sharp turn and he did not stop, almost hitting the ceiling directly. Let's rush down the key, Ryan, you are ready. Harry finished speaking with Ron and the two of them to rush down the key. The key quickly flew down to avoid their pursuit, but did not find that it had flown too low, leaving the large army. Finally, the key was forced very close to the ground, and Ryan jumped up and grabbed the key. Ryan, thanks for the mechanical and medical knowledge I learned recently, which greatly improved the stability and accuracy of the hand. Otherwise, I will definitely be ashamed today. Lean held the key tightly, because the key struggled like a living creature. After Harry and Ron landed, they came to the door together. Ryan inserted the key in the keyhole and turned the door open with a click, which meant that the key they chose was correct. After releasing the key and watching it fly away, Ryan unscrewed the door handle. 4 people pour into the next level. When entered the room was dark. Ryan also worried about what he would trip over. But as soon as everyone stepped into the house, the whole house became brightly lit. The door behind was locked with a click. This reminded Ryan of the soap opera where the heroine celebrated her birthday but the hero didn't listen to it. The heroine felt a little sad. Finally, after a day of work, the hostess arrived home with a tired look, and just walked into the house to close the door, and the light turned on. The host and her friends prepared a whole birthday party to surprise the hostess. It's a pity that Ryan and Des are here, not the cake at the surprise party, but Professor McGonagall's giant chessboard. Ryan felt that if Professor McGonagall was replaced by a Celestial, he might become a giant mahjong or something. But seriously, he thinks these levels are purely for mocking Voldemort. He mocks that he is now mixed up with the first graders. After all, there are only a few ways of entertainment in the wizarding world. Wizarding chess should be the most popular except Quidditch, and at least half of the people should be. The style of Professor McGonagall was probably similar to Hermione when she was young. Then the level of wizard chess is estimated to be average, even if the stone pieces are even stronger, but the level of the chess player is the biggest flaw in this level. The pieces on the board are about the size of real people, and they are made of black and white stones. You don't need to try to know that this thing must have a very high magic resistance, and it can't be done by magic such as smashing spells. What's more important is that these flags have no facial features. With a brightly lit chessboard and other places in the dark room, a thick horror movie feels ready to come out. Ryan couldn't help but think of the monsters who had no mouth and no face in the horror movie of the previous life, feeling a bit cold. But he turned around and saw that Harry was shaking, obviously more terrified. A door opposite the chessboard shows that only by winning this chess can you pass. To make matters worse, everyone has to play a chess piece. At this time, the more people, the more losses. Finally, Ryan and Ron played knights, Hermione played the queen, and Harry played the castle. This game is played by Ron, the wizard with the highest level of chess. After the game started, Ryan found that these pieces seemed to be fierce when they ate other pieces, but they were mainly stunned, and they did not use the weapons in their hands to kill them. It seems that Professor McGonagall's level is just to delay the time, and at the same time avoid accidentally injuring Harry who came to pass the level. And if Voldemort used magic to force through the level, then these pieces will not feel as peaceful as they are now. For Voldemort, who is currently attached to Kilo, these levels are hard to break through, and it is estimated that there will be no left. How much magic? Since there would be no danger to his life, Ryan put his heart down and began to have a leisurely time to see Ron playing chess. Ron's level looks good, but because of the need to take care of Ryan, he can't show his hands and feet. Sometimes you have to pay more. Ryan saw these shouting to Ron, I learned an iron armor curse, and it should be fine when I hit me, so you don't have to take care of me. Really? Said Ron. After getting repeated confirmations from Ryan, he said to Ryan, you lean forward to the right to eat their most threatening queen. Then you will be eaten by the opponent's knight. Chess is ready to go. It seems that the more people there are, the more Ron will be. He thinks that if he feels he can make sacrifices here, the situation should be much better. Chapter 45, Breakthrough. Ryan felt that as an adult, even now it is only Soul. They should also be in front of the children when making sacrifices. So when Ron asked about the plan that required sacrifice, Ryan answered no problem. Eaten the queen of the opponent according to Ron's command. Then the knight who watched him rushed towards him. Armor body. Ryan released the iron armor curse, and then saw the opponent's knight swing the sword across and shoot himself. Suddenly shot him out of the chessboard. The iron armor curse also shattered. All right, Ryan? Harry asked them in unison. No problem, I'm fine, let me sit for a while, after all, you may be under a longer time. Come on, Lane replied. Then he sat down and covered his ribs where Harry could not see them. The magic just now was self-taught by Ryan through that note, but because of his young age and unclear notes, this magic just buffered. While Harry was still playing chess, Ryan opened his clothes and started to touch his ribs according to his knowledge of traditional Chinese medicine. Sure enough, 2 ribs were broken on the right. Fortunately, in the wizarding world, This pure trauma is the best cure. It's just that I can't speak loudly now and I'm not suitable for activities. Soon after, Ryan heard that Ron also decided to sacrifice himself to win the game, and he stood up with pain. Probably because the arm moved too much when the spell was moved too fast, and the ribs seemed to protrude into the lungs. He released a protective armor to Ron with blood foam in the corner of his mouth. After that, Queen White hit Ron's head with her arm, dragged him out of the chessboard after being stunned. Iron armor did not block the attack. After Harry won the game, Hermione exclaimed, "Lane, I saw you vomit blood. How are you now?" It seems that when Ryan just vomited blood and cast a spell, Hermione saw it. "Don't worry about me," Lane said, "it's just some trauma. I think I may not be able to go down with you. But don't worry, Mrs. Pomfrey of the school hospital will cure me soon." "I'm here looking at Ron here. Hurry up and go forward." Hermione and Harry still looked a little worried, but they quickly opened the door and walked down the corridor to the next place. After they left, Lane slowly stood up and walked towards Ron. After bypassing a fallen castle pawn, he came to Ron and found that there was a big purple bag on Ron's head. After the inspection, Ryan found that he didn't know whether it was the pawn's mercy or his half-armed iron armor curse. Ron only passed out after a concussion, and his bones were not injured. Lane opened Ron's eyelids, looked at his pupils carefully, and then touched his pulse again. It seems that the problem is not serious, and he will be able to wake up later. It's just that Ryan was worried that he might need to leave here for a while, so he pulled out his wand and said to Ron's face, "Clear water is like a spring." A stream of water sprayed from Ryan's wand and poured on Ron's face. Ron soon woke up to cover his face with his hand and muttered in his mouth, "Is it raining?" It seems that this is a sequel of concussion, but Ron recovers quickly. After 2 or 3 minutes he sat up on his own, leaning on a fallen sculpture and watching Lion's gravel turning into a wooden stick. After that, he cut off his robe with a knife to fix the ribs. After resetting the ribs, looked at the blood on Ryan's chin as he turned around, and Ron was surprised. "Ryan, you vomit blood." "It's okay, it's just ordinary trauma. I bet Pomfrey will cure me in a minute, and now it's okay if it's fixed," Ryan replied. Then both of them leaned weakly on the sculpture and started chatting. "Did you say, Harry, that they are now at the place where the magic stone was placed? What should they do if they encounter Snape?" "I think the previous problem should be inevitable for both of them. Besides, Harry can escape from that person once but not necessarily twice or 3 times," Lane said, silently thinking. "After all, this is just a trial for Harry. Dumbledore must be ready. Otherwise, for security reasons, Dumbledore put it in his pocket. Who can take it away? Not to mention that if these levels are passed in a hinted way, it is not difficult, and it is not aimed at an adult black wizard. But Ryan estimated that Dumbledore should not have thought that Voldemort would be attached to Quirrell. Otherwise, although Voldemort cannot be killed, with Dumbledore's ability, it is okay to set up some magic that can weaken Voldemort's power and let it sleep for a few years. Rather than being the same as in the original, it was only because he lost his body again for only 2 years. Not to mention that Dumbledore, as a wise man, would not risk such meaningless risks with Harry's life. While Ryan and Ron had a chat with each other, Hermione ran out of the door opposite the board. She saw Ryan and the 2 of them sitting there consciously, and excitedly said to them, "We should go to the Owl Hut now to report to Dumbledore." Afterwards, the 3 men ran to the house full of keys where the flying broom was previously placed, and Hermione told Ryan on the way. After passing the chessboard is a monster. You reading www.uukanzu. But the monster has been stunned. She and Harry successfully reached the final level, but found that the thief's potion was only one person left to try to dye the magic stone through the flames. Harry decided to face the thief and let her call Ryan, and the 2 went out to report. As soon as the words fell, they had reached the room where the broom was placed. When he reached the trapdoor on a broom, Lane hypnotized the big dog with a spare music box around his waist. Then they rushed to the Owl Hut, but they met Professor Dumbledore as soon as they arrived in the hall. Professor looked at them in awkward manner and asked, "Harry is staring at him, isn't he?" Then he hurried towards the 4th floor. Looking at Professor Dumbledore's back like he was running on the 4th floor, Lion thought they were completely safe this time. "As soon as my mind was relaxed, the pain in my body broke out." They helped each other and walked towards the school. Miss Pomfrey seemed to have been notified in advance. She was wearing pajamas and wearing a coat, standing outside the school hospital waiting for them. Looking at their embarrassed appearance, she muttered in her mouth and ordered Ryan to lie in bed for examination. Lynn took her off his dirty and torn coat at the checkpoint and lay down on the bed carefully. Just after the head was on the pillow, I heard the sound of the system. Slightly change the leveling process to get 2 offset points. 24 offset points are enough to find a world that can get good power. Ryan strengthened his determination to venture into the new world to gain power. Otherwise, such a big scene like today only gets a little offset by rubbing the side ball. I really feel a bit sorry, but then again, when there is no power, it is more appropriate to follow the inner choice. After all, only Liv will have hope, isn't it? Chapter 46, Trivia. At the end of the semester, after everyone lay down, Mrs. Pomfrey first went to Ryan's bed to check on him. After all, Ryan looked the worst. After releasing a spell on Ryan, Mrs. Pomfrey made an angry voice, I don't know why the headmaster put so many dangerous things in the school. As a result, students were injured. For example, you, Ryan, right, the 2 ribs on the side are broken. The 2 bones are cracked, and the contusion of the lungs is not a minor injury. But you must be able to heal me, right? Lane said slightly to Mrs. Pomfrey. Of course. All you suffered is trauma. It can be cured in one night. But you may need to spend the night here. After she released a spell to fix Ryan's ribs, she threw out a sick suit. But seriously, for your age, your first aid is very good, to avoid more serious injuries. Can I ask, where did you learn these? You see me as a heavenly man. My grandfather had been selling medicated meals in Chinatown in London before and knew some Chinese medicine. I followed him to learn these. Ah, I know. When I was in Street Munga, I heard some therapists say that many traditional maltreatments in the Far East were taught to them by local wizards. But there is a good place there. For thousands of years, the wizards lived in harmony with ordinary people. Mrs. Pomfrey brought a large bottle with the raw bones on it. She poured a glass from inside and handed it to Ryan. Ryan took the glass and drank it, feeling like a flame burning from her mouth to her stomach, accompanied by some strange smell that could not be said. It feels similar to the enhanced version of Huoxiang's Inkai water. Madame Pomfrey watched as Ryan finished taking the medicine and said, I actually can use my magic to pick up a bone in a second, but that requires overdrawing your body. It is better for you to drink medicine in this state. Now you need to sleep in the school hospital for one night. Finally, Madame Pomfrey went to bandage Ron. Soon, Dumbledore directed a stretcher with his wand and floated, with Harry Potter lying on it. Professor, is Harry all right? Ryan asked Professor Dumbledore one after another. Professor Dumbledore told them not to worry, Harry was just stunned by some magical damage, and he could rest in bed for a while. After listening, Ryan said goodbye to Hermione, who was going back to the dormitory. Then I talked to Ron, who needed to be hospitalized for observation. Miss Pomfrey suspected that Ron might have concussion sequelae, and insisted that he be hospitalized for one night. Then he said goodnight to each other and turned to fall asleep. Early the next morning, Ryan visited Harry, who was still in a coma on the bed next door, and after praying for him in his heart, he left the hospital with Ron. The days after were boring. It is worth mentioning that the last Quidditch match was held. Gryffindor had a fiasco in the game against Ravenclaw because there was no backup finder. But it seems that everyone is not so frustrated. After all, the players have tried their best. Every day at noon, Ryan and the 3 of them will go to the school hospital to ask about Harry's condition. On the 3rd day after the adventure, the day before the year-end banquet, Ryan went to the entrance of the school hospital to ask Mrs. Pomfrey. This time Harry finally woke up. Mrs. Pomfrey gave them 5 minutes of talk time. They came to Harry's bed and saw him lying half on the bed against the pillow. Harry, are you better now? Ryan asked after stopping Hermione, who was trying to hug Harry excitedly. It's much better now. It is estimated that he will be discharged in the afternoon. Harry replied with a smile. Oh, Harry, we all thought you must be. Dumbledore was very worried. The whole school is talking about it. Ron said, what was the situation at the time? Sometimes the truth of the story is more bizarre than rumors. Harry told them all the originals, Kilo, Mirror, Magic Stone and Voldemort. Ryan, they listened very attentively, and every time they reached a thrilling place, they gasped nervously, and when Harry talked about the face under Quirrell's turban, Hermione screamed in silence. It seems that the man is still back. We still can't relax our guard, Ryan finally concluded. Several other people nodded with emotion. So, the magic stone is gone. Finally Ron asked, Lemmy is dying? I said the same, but Dumbledore thought, what did he say? Very clear-headed for people. Death is just another great adventure apostrophe. I have said that he is a little nervous, Ron said. The hero in his mind became so unreasonable that he was shocked. No, I don't think so, just because we are too young to understand, Ryan said. Then he turned to Hermione. Remember the story of the young girl Malpazar? In Greek mythology, Hermione patted her forehead. Yeah. The legend says she gave up eternal life because she thought she was immortal, need human sorrow. I can't understand it, but I also know that at least eternal life is not necessarily a good thing. Harry and Ron listened dumbfounded. To cover up the awkward situation, Ron quickly digressed and began to talk about what they did the day when Harry challenged the final level. Finally Ron said, you said, did Dumbledore intentionally want you to do this? Give you your father's invisibility cloak to guide you to do that? Oops, Hermione couldn't help but say, if he really is like this, I mean it's too scary, you are likely to be killed. Ryan made a dissenting opinion. I think Dumbledore may just want to guide and exercise Harry, but he didn't expect that person would mix in this way. After all, the principal is just a powerful wizard, but he is not a god. It's impossible to know everything. I think Ryan is right, Harry said. I think Dumbledore knows what we are doing, and constantly guides us, and teaches us a lot in secret. After all, he thinks that I have grown up to face Voldemort. The problem is no longer an ignorant child. So Dumbledore is the greatest wizard of this century, Ryan said, but what you need most now is to recover quickly, because tomorrow is the year-end banquet. I heard the seniors say that this is Hogwarts, one of the best. Must not be missed. Just then, Madame Pomfrey broke in. You have been staying for almost 15 minutes. and give me out soon," she said firmly. Ryan they can only leave goodbye to Harry after leaving the school hospital. Chapter 47, End of Semester. The next night, the grand final banquet began. Ryan and their classmates rushed to the auditorium early and left a place for Harry at the long table of the college. "You said Harry, will you come today?" Hermione asked Ryan sitting beside him. "I think he will definitely come. After all, we saw him recovering well yesterday. It should be fine to be discharged today," Lane replied. Ron, who was sitting opposite Ryan, also helped. "Yeah, I think Harry will definitely come." "How could such a grand banquet not come?" "I think I will crawl even if I break my leg." Hermione glared at Ron angrily, and then looked at the special decoration in the auditorium tonight. The entire auditorium was renovated by the green and silver representing Slytherin to celebrate their winning the Academy Cup for 7 consecutive years. On the wall behind the head table, a huge banner with a Slytherin snake hung. "If more time is given, maybe we can add the points back," Hermione said a little bit dissatisfied. Ryan looked quite open. On the one hand, Dumbledore was determined to open up extra points for a while. On the other hand, at least we are not the penultimate. We are at least more than 30 points higher than the bottom Hufflepuff. After all, one night less than 50 points less, and Hermione did not add a lot of points to Ryan due to the guilt of being transparent in the classroom. After listening to Ryan's relief, Hermione looked even more depressed. Under similar circumstances, Harry hurriedly rushed in from outside the gate of the auditorium. The sound of the entire auditorium paused, and then the sound became louder. Ryan waved to Harry for their position. Harry ran over and sat next to Ron, leaving a space in advance. Everyone around looked at Harry. This made Harry look a little uncomfortable. Fortunately, soon Dumbledore arrived. The noise in the auditorium gradually subsided, and everyone turned their attention to the principal. Dumbledore was happy to make a brief summary, and then began the award ceremony of the Academy Cup. The scores of the colleges this time are as follows. 4th place, Hufflepuff, 352 points. 3rd place, Gryffindor, 384 points. Ravenclaw, 426 points. Slytherin 510. Slytherin burst into thunderous cheers and stomping feet. Ryan saw Draco Malfoy striking the table with a goblet. "I don't think this is in line with the style of the so-called platinum aristocrats. I really don't understand how to learn the etiquette in those pureblood families." Dumbledore cleared his throat and continued. "However, several recent events must also be counted." The auditorium became very quiet, and the smiles of the Slytherins also calmed down. Ryan knew that Dumbledore was going to add points at this time, although Ryan was a little annoyed by such unfair extra points when he read in his life. But as the saying goes, the determines the head. In his lifetime, he was assigned to Gryffindor, so naturally this unfair extra point is to say, a little more. After Ryan recovered, Dumbledore had already announced various bonus points. First of all, he added 50 cents for the wisdom, courage and sacrifice spirit that Ryan and Ron showed on the chessboard. This caused cheers on Gryffindor's table. Lane felt feverish in his excited face, and Percy's voice was heard next to him. "It's my younger brother." He broke through Professor McGonagall's chessboard. After Dumbledore added 30 minutes to Hermione's reasoning ability, Hermione cried excitedly on the table. Finally, Harry added 60 points to Gryffindor because of his fearless courage and extraordinary courage. Hearing these, the waves of cheers on the Gryffindor table were higher than waves. Because the Gryffindor score is now 524, it is a full 10 points higher than Slytherin. Principal Dumbledore changed the decoration in the auditorium. The green drape ribbon turned bright red, and the silver became golden. The giant Slytherin snake disappeared, replaced by a majestic Gryff and many lions. Ryan saw Snape shaking hands with Professor McGonagall, his face embarrassed with an awkward smile. After, it was a sumptuous dinner. It was really a beautiful evening. A few days later, the final results were announced, and Ryan took the 2nd place. The 1st place is naturally the of learning Hermione. He saw Hermione go to him specifically to show off her transcripts, so that reporting to elementary school has always been the second hatred. But Hogwarts seems to be not difficult in the final exam. Everyone has passed, but Harry regretted that some stupid Slytherin students passed the exam. The last semester was completely over. Everything was stuffed into the suitcase. A notice not allowing the use of magic during the holidays was also sent to each student. "Ryan, anyway, I have a place to practice magic. Hagrid is responsible for leading them to the fleet that crosses the lake." Now, they have been on the Hogwarts Express train, talking and laughing all the way. Watching the countryside outside the window was getting greener and cleaner. The train drove through mole towns. They ate BB beans and took off the wizard's robe and put on jackets and blouses. Finally, the train stopped at platform 9 3/4 at King's Cross Station. It took them a long time before they all walked out of the platform. A shriveled old guard stood at the ticket gate, allowing only 2 or 3 people to pass at a time, so that they would not have a large number of people coming in and out of the solid wall at the same time, attracting the attention of the moles. "You must come to our house to play this summer," Ron said. "You all come. I will send owls to invite you." "Thank you," Harry said. "I really need to have a look." Going up Harry's life at Dursley's is not good. I really hope he will be a little better this holiday. Ryan and they passed the exit together, he saw a little girl with red hair. It should be Ron's sister Ginny, the future Mrs. Potter. Pointing to Harry Potter and saying, "He's there, Mom, he's there, look." Then Mrs. Weasley and Harry greeted each other, but the Dursleys interrupted the conversation roughly. "Come on, boy, we can't delay all day." Mr. Dursley turned and walked away. "You live there?" Ryan showed an unbelievable expression. "So rude people are." Hermione showed the same expression. "Wish you a holiday." "May happy time." Fortunately, Harry seemed to be in good spirits. "Oh, I will be happy." "They don't know that we are not allowed to use magic at home. This summer vacation, I want to take good care of Dudley." Chapter 48, Start of Summer Vacation. Wow! Lane was vomiting while holding the toilet, and the voice of her mother Sally came from outside. "Ryan, are you okay?" "Mom, I'm okay, I will come out immediately." Vomit. The reason why Ryan is vomiting now is because he was on a cruise ship, and he was unlucky enough to encounter a storm, and then he was seasick. As for why he is on a cruise ship, the reason is this. After returning home from Hogwarts during the summer vacation, Ryan and Hermione write homework in the community library every day. Hermione, the real schoolmaster, estimated that he wanted to prepare for the homework after finishing his homework. You can learn those abilities in the rest of the vacation. After all, the knowledge gained from the school is too little. Know that in the magic world, knowledge is power. The lack of strength in the last semester led to soy sauce being used for most of the time, and there were not many important deviations. So Ryan made up his mind to improve his ability. Thought that this summer vacation was spent working overtime, and as a result things changed quickly. Just a week after the holiday, Mr. Lambert's father, Lane, received an invitation. A college classmate in Reykjavik finally met his destined partner and decided to marry him, inviting him as a guest. Since Mr. Lambert had a very good relationship with this classmate at university, this classmate worked for National Geographic magazine after graduation, taking pictures while traveling around the world. But his friendship with Mr. Lambert has never ceased, and every time he visits a new place, he will always send postcards to Mr. Lambert. Ryan had seen many postcards sent by this uncle from all over the world at home. So in the end, Mr. Lambert decided to take this opportunity to take the whole family to take a cruise to Iceland to take a trip to the wedding party of his buddy. The only thing he didn't expect was that his son was seasick after a small storm. Fortunately, Ryan went to the deck with his parents to blow after vomiting, which was finally better. Fortunately, they boarded the boat from Scotland and only needed 2 days to get to Iceland. After slowing down a bit, Lane finally had the energy to plan his journey in Iceland. When his parents saw Ryan recovering and began to look at things, they decided not to disturb him. Go to the boat to enjoy the traditional Nordic sauna. After learning that he was going to Iceland, Lane ran to Diagon Alley's only wizard travel agency, Kixing Travel Agency, and asked for a bunch of travel manuals about Iceland. Unlike the United Kingdom, the entire Nordic Ministry of Magic is a whole. After all, considering the population of Iceland, the wizards there simply cannot support a Ministry of Magic. Even if you count all the intelligent creatures in the magic world, calculate the population according to the exaggerated proportion of 1. There may be only 250 intelligent creatures in the magic world in Iceland. The population of Iceland was more than 250,000 in 1991. If the intelligent creatures 1/3 of them are wizards, so the number of wizards in Iceland is not even more than 100. It is easy to enter Iceland as a wizard, especially the little wizard who is still in school, such as Lane, does not even need to go to the local wizard organization to report. Because the biggest income of the wizarding world in Iceland comes from tourism and the sale of some special products, the entry of foreign wizards is very loosely controlled. In Iceland, there is one of the largest wild bird sanctuary in Europe. In addition to the bird, there are some wild monsters and goblin tribes in the reserve. At the same time, there are giant North Sea giant monsters and loba insects in the waters near Iceland. The International Federation of Wizards has several observation points here, used to observe these rare and magical creatures, and ensure that they do not appear in the eyes of ordinary people. Not to mention that there are some remains of ancient Nordic wizards in Iceland. To this day, there are some wizards searching for treasures that may be passed down. After reading the information about Iceland, Lane found that he was feeling much better, so he took out a stack of parchment paper from his luggage and continued to write his homework. Fortunately, when he went to Diagon Alley to search for information, Ryan found a cloth bag with a seamless stretch spell in a thrift store, which allowed him to travel with a lot of textbooks and learning tools. The cloth bag style is a bit old, with some beautiful lace, and it is now placed in the corner of Ryan's suitcase. It looks like the cloth bag is only as big as 2 adult male palms spread out, but in fact it can hold 2 large suitcases. Lynn thinks that the reason for finding the treasure this time is that he bought the bag for only 5 gallons. The owner thought it was just an ordinary bag with a seamless stretch spell. But when Ryan returned home to use it, he found that no matter how many things were contained in it, as long as it exceeds 5 kilograms, the weight of the bag will be fixed at 5 kilograms. So this should be a more advanced magic prop. You reading books www.uukanzu.com. Of course, this time I mainly came out to relax, and it was a bit too uncomfortable to keep myself in the room writing homework questions. Not to mention that this ship is a cruise ship, there are many interesting things to do on board. For example, Ryan had seen the manual of the ship before. There were yoga lectures on the ship. You can also visit the small theater that performs short stage shows, go to the cinema to watch movies, and shop in duty-free shops. Even in his last life, because he lived in an inland city, Lane never tried this kind of travel. So after writing today's homework, Ryan began to hang out on the boat. In this era, there were still very few tourists who went abroad. After several waiters saw Ryan again, they all greeted Ryan in Japanese, so he felt a little uncomfortable. After a round of eye-opening on the cruise ship, Ryan found out that because he was a child, many services on the cruise ship were not open to him, and the pocket money on his body did not bring much, so he could not buy souvenirs. No way. He went back to the room where they lived alone, lying in bed halfway and started watching TV. Suddenly a piece of news caught his attention. TV said a volcano in eastern Iceland was about to erupt recently. The information that Lane obtained from Diagonally indicated that there was a ruin of an ancient Nordic wizard near the volcano. So Ryan decided to check it out at that time. After a while, Ryan's parents returned from the sauna after steaming, and looked good. After entering the door, they were a little angry that Lane Nuo was watching TV in bed, thinking that this was a waste of opportunity for traveling. So Ryan was jogged around the sightseeing route on board by Mr. Lambert. Fortunately, after jogging for a lap, Ryan felt much better. Finally got rid of the problem of seasickness. Chapter 49, Arriving in Iceland and visiting new guests. After a 2-day journey at sea, the ship finally reached Iceland's largest port and Iceland's capital, Reykjavik. Standing on the deck, Lane found the city between the mountains and the sea, and their ships were heading east into the port of Reykjavik. It was exactly the morning when Dongxing's rising sun reflected the mountains near the city into a delicate purple. This place gives the most impression that the sky is very blue. After all, there is no industry here, and even the entire city is heated by environmentally friendly geothermal heating. Because the place where the city is located is rich in geothermal resources, the city is even named after it. Reykjavik means smoky city in Icelandic. After disembarking, Ryan and his family went straight to the hotel to rest. Although Iceland has its own language, due to the long-term US garrison, Icelanders have good English and there are no barriers to communication. After arriving at the hotel to put down their luggage, Mr. Lambert decided to take a rest. And Ryan applied to Mr. Lambert to go around the wizarding business street here, in view of the good security environment in Iceland and the size of Reykjavik in the early 1990s. And the fact that Lane was already a wizard. Mr. Lambert agreed that Lane went out alone and handed him the equivalent of 150 krona. It's just that he must come back before 12 noon. Ryan agreed, and left the hotel and took a taxi to the city center, and soon arrived. After all, here is just a small city of about 100,000 people, and the urban area is not large. According to the guide map and introduction of 7-Star Hostel, Lane found the entrance of the Wizarding Business District here, a 5-story building hung with the Aurora Hostel brand. Guests come in and out here. Lane turned to the side of the hostel, where there was a decorative panel carved with the Viking longship. He drew his wand and tapped the third shield from the left on the engraved longboat 5 times. A brick arch appeared next to the engraving. Lane was about to go in. Suddenly a message came from the system that a new guest entered the Wanji grocery store. No way. He could only run a few steps forward and turn around the corner to an unmanned alley. After looking around for safety, he chose to enter the grocery store. After entering the grocery store, Ryan first went to check the dragon grass on the table. This dragon grass is different from ordinary dragon grass. The faucet that grew on the top of the plant disappeared, and a football-sized red fruit grows on the position of the dragon head. This is a new plant that Ryan cultivated after the summer vacation started. After eating the Crazy Dave's technology, Ryan used dragon grass as the original, using the eggshell fragments, scales, blood and fangs of Noble collected before, thanks to Ron S. Finger for his contribution, as well as the cane of the devil vine obtained at the end of the level. Cultivate this new plant. Due to the fact that too many magic ingredients have been added to it, this is something that Dave has never met before when he cultivated plants. So many places are grouping and doing, and only the words and phrases that I usually ask from Professor Sprout can be used as a reference. There are too many places in luck. Fortunately, Ryan had good luck. This plant has grown up successfully, and later you will see what will happen when the seeds in this fruit mature. After observing the plant, Lane asked the shop to put in new guests. With the footsteps, the guests walked into the grocery store, and Ryan watched the guests make a surprised whisper, because this time the guests are not 1, but 2. Walking in front is a man, looking in his 30s or 40s, wearing a great sailing-era dress that Ryan has seen in many European costume movies. But his face looked a little bit of vicissitudes. At first glance, he had suffered a lot. After seeing Ryan, he bent slightly and made a guard posture to protect the people behind him. And the person behind him is a woman, wearing a blue dress that looks like 11 or 12 years old, about the same size as Ryan. "Mister, take it easy, I have no malice towards you," Ryan said. This is Wanji Grocery Store. I am the owner of Ryan. Every guest who comes here is to solve their biggest problem now. So you can tell me about your problems? I might be able to help you. Maybe the man saw clearly that it was just a child sitting opposite the counter. Unlike a dangerous one, his body relaxed. Then he sat on the floor with the girl, surprised to watch Ryan turn out from behind the counter, then took out a large piece of tablecloth from a small bag he carried, and then took out a bottle of whiskey, turned out of the storage room at home, estimated further I forgot, a bucket of juice and 3 glasses. Ryan always feels that since there is a space bag, he must fill it up, so a lot of stuff is stuffed. After watching a glass of whiskey filled by Ryan in his hand, the middle-aged man took a sip, and then began to tell his story. I am Edward Kenway, once a captain, now retired, prepare to raise my daughter. After he finished, he pointed to his daughter who was sitting quietly and drinking juice. This is my daughter Jennifer. Scott I had ignored their mother and daughter in order to make money. Now I just hope to be safe. Raise my daughter quietly. Ryan couldn't find the name in his memory, but it is normal to think of so many worlds that you don't know. So he smiled, looking at the girl about the same age as himself. Found that Ryan was watching her, and the girl leaned towards his father. Lane turned and said to Kenway, she looks a little bit bad at communicating with people. Yeah, Kenway replied, because I had offended many people when I was the captain. So I want to avoid letting others find out where we live. She may have little contact with others. So what you need now? A completely strange place, a place where no one can find us, a place where I can raise my daughter well. Kenway said to Ryan, can you talk about your world in detail? Then I can judge what kind of world meets your requirements. Ryan said, you should be able to tell that I and you are not in a world, so you don't have to worry about telling your secret to anyone you know. To prove this, Ryan pulled out his wand and read a fluorescent flash, and then a stream of water emerged from the head of the wand. As you can see, I am a wizard. There should be no one like me in your world. Well, you are a bit like the precursor of our world, but you should be completely different. Kenway replied. Precursor? Lane said that he did not understand the English word. Chapter 50, can finally improve the combat effectiveness. After seeing Ryan's puzzled eyes, Kenway briefly explained what he knew of the Forerunners. After listening, Ryan concluded that these are some advanced creatures with advanced technology and abilities. It can be seen that his world rank is not low, which also shows from the side that he has more power than a normal person, and is likely to be an extraordinary person. After Kenway began to introduce his world, it sounded like a parallel world of the Earth, a world in the era of great navigation. Maybe a safe environment to relax him, or he may have hidden some secrets for too long, and it is more likely that he drank some wine. Kenway began to chatter about his previous experience. In order to make money, there was a conflict with his wife. The wife left him and went back to his family. In order to save his wife, he decided to go to the Caribbean. Later really made money, but his wife passed away because of illness, leaving only one daughter. He finally realized that what he needed was not money, but his family. Is determined to create a good living environment for his daughter. It is a pity that there are too many Chu families. He dare not let his daughter contact too many outsiders, which makes his daughter even a little lonely now. So he kept thinking about it, hoping to have a place where he could completely avoid the family and provide a good environment for his daughter to grow up. As a result, when he thought about this problem and went to the beach with his daughter for a day, he encountered a mist. After the mist had gone, I went to the software grocery store. Then Kenway began to talk about his experience at sea, about his fight at sea. Next to her daughter opened her mouth in surprise. It was obvious that her father had never told him these things before. Ryan does not consider piracy a legitimate profession, but in those days, there was no wanton killing of civilians. Ryan thought it was acceptable, but these things are not very good in front of children. So Ryan took out a set of wizard chess and handed it to the little girl Jennifer Scott, and asked her to sit and play behind the counter. Then sit down and chat with Kenway. Chatting and talking, Kenway said of his boat, it was a sturdy double-masted sailing boat that was stable and fast. It was loaded with more than 50 guns and was protected by iron plates. It drove as fast as the wind and as flexible as a bird. Unfortunately, in Haiti the island is sinking. Oh my poor Jackdaw. Ryan suddenly heard a familiar name from him. Jackdaw. He recalled a famous stalk seen on the internet in the previous life. The Heavenly Land Jackdaw. Although this is a special method to describe the behavior of certain game companies to buy bugs and give away games, Ryan suddenly thought of the world this person came from, Assassin's Creed. Unfortunately, in his last life, he only read some articles related to Assassin's Creed and never played it. So he can't guess what kind of story this person has experienced. But what can be confirmed is that since he is driving the protagonist's ship, then he must be the protagonist. The protagonist of the Assassin's Creed is only an assassin, so this one should be an assassin. Thinking of this, Ryan said to Kenway the sentence he used to forcefully remember in his last life, nothing is true, everything is false. Everything just permitted, Kenway said half confidently. Then he woke up suddenly. How do you know that I am an assassin? Don't be excited. Kenway, who stood up, made a gesture with his hands pressed down to signal him to sit down, and then pointed to the back of the counter with a flustered look and stood up while accidentally knocking over Jennifer. Your daughter was almost scared by you. I just said that this is a grocery store in Wanji. As the name suggests, it can connect countless worlds, and it is normal for some stories of your world to spread to me. Kenway thought for a while, and thought Ryan would have started if he was malicious. So I relaxed and sat back again, and then asked, since you know who I am, then you will also know that the Templars' pursuit of me is endless. Although I exchanged my life for my safety, but this is actually putting your own safety in the hands of others, and it does not guarantee absolute safety. Is there any way for me to truly protect my daughter's healthy growth? Don't forget that it can be called Wanji Grocery Store, Ryan said with some pride. Here, we can connect to Wanji, and I have the ability to send you to the world connected by this grocery store. I don't believe your world. The Templars can chase other worlds. Well, this is an idea. Kenway replied seriously, so what price do I have to pay? After all, no one in this world will help others for no reason. Everything can be used for trading. Your ability, your power, your wealth, your knowledge. These will not lose them because of trading with me. Just teach them to me. It's fair. I'm willing to exchange everything I have with my daughter for the rest of her stable life. But you have to tell me first, which world will you send us to? It's my pleasure to introduce you to these. Because the transaction is about to be completed. Lane looks very happy. He began to introduce Kenway to the world he could send their father and daughter. The first world is a world at the end of the ice and needs to struggle to survive. This is absolutely not necessary. Kenway's decisive veto came. The second world is very similar to yours, equivalent to the world of yours hundreds of years later. But if you go there, you may be able to catch 2 world wars in your life. Ryan then briefly introduced twice the death toll of the World War. I really don't want to take part in the war anymore, let alone let my daughter get in. The third world is a very ordinary world, a few years later than mine. It is a completely normal world. This can be considered. In the last world, there are some living corpses, but humans have cultivated a special plant to fight them. I helped the world a lot before, and recently I received a notification from a partner in that world that they have successfully recovered after a lot of land. They will one day wipe out the zombies. After that, Ryan also showed the plants of that world. Jennifer put down the wizard chess and ran to observe these plants carefully. After introducing the 4 worlds, Ryan looked at Kenway. I only have these 4 worlds here. If you are willing to choose one of them, then the deal is established. If you don't want to, you can also leave with your daughter. It all depends on your wishes. Obviously, Kenway was a little hesitant in the 2 worlds of plants versus zombies and out of control. He asked to elaborate on the details of these 2 worlds. Finally, after a long and awkward silence, Kenway finally made his decision.